All right, folks, it's 4 o'clock here in Durham, North Carolina. And of course, we're having a very interesting conversation here at the online dinner party. As many of you know, we oftentimes will have a mystery guest or two that will appear. They will be a historical figure. So, of course, they won't be appearing in real time, as that would be kind of hard to do. They would have to be ghosts or something along those lines. And that's not what the case is. But definitely things are going real well here in North Carolina. Of course, we are dealing with what's happening in the world in the sense of the pandemic and, of course, the other concerns that people have around the world. But even with all of those concerns, we're trying to keep an upbeat spirit, trying to keep a very positive attitude about what's happening in the world and just trying to have that very positive attitude. That's definitely one of the things that we are very much about at IBM.TV. I know that the founders are oftentimes trying to find solutions to various things that may be happening around the world. So that's one of the things that we always encourage is folks to find a positive solution, even though we know that these are very hard times, both economically as well as in terms of just like health concerns and a number of other things. So we are definitely glad to do our part by creating positive energy and positive thought. So that's one of the things that we try to do here on a regular basis. And I think that we're very successful at that. But y'all can be the judge of that as y'all hear more and more of the programs and tell us what you think of them. But definitely, World Peace Day is coming up. We will be involved in that. So that will be coming up on September 21st. So we are definitely looking forward to hearing from a number of our guests about World Peace Day and around the world to their reflections on world peace. Because one thing we know is that we are finding out that the world is becoming more unified in some ways because we're all facing one struggle and one thing at the same time. So a number of us are dealing with that. And here in North Carolina, we just had a little bit of rain. So that rain was very good. I know folks were definitely enjoying that. I've got some friends that are gardeners, so they were out there probably glad that their plants were getting a little bit of water and that they can get those gardens going. And we do know a number of folks are out there planting their gardens and doing a number of great things along that line. So that's what we've got going on here in the Durham area. Like I said, I know a number of folks have also been following the things that are going on in sports because we do have a number of sports events that have been taking place, like the U.S. Open. Of course, the Kentucky Derby was just this past weekend. And then, of course, folks are following the NBA and baseball, which will be entering into its postseason very shortly as well. Everything is kind of shortened seasons, or in some cases, no seasons, because I know that some of the colleges have said that they are not going to have fall sports at all. So that's one of the things that are going on. I know I've been following some of the basketball games, rooting for the Clippers, as I went to school with Doc Rivers, and I'm definitely hoping that he can pull out a second championship. He's definitely got one with the Boston Celtics, but I would like to see him get one with the Clippers. But I know that Denver is not going to roll over. As a matter of fact, none of these opponents for any of the favorites are going to roll over, even though Houston went down 2-1 to the Lakers. Definitely, we know Houston won't roll over, and I doubt very seriously that even though Boston's got the edge, that Toronto is just going to give them that kind of edge of not at least competing. So whether Boston will join Miami in that playoff picture over there in one conference, or whether Toronto will force a game 7, we'll find that out later on today. But definitely that's some of the things that are going on. I know a number of folks are also following what's going on in the political front because we do have an election coming up in November. And I definitely urge folks to get out there and vote. We do know that voting is very important. You can't really complain if you don't get out there and do the voting. So a number of folks are paying attention to that and paying attention to their concerns around voting. So I do want to bring in some of my guests. I've got some great guests with me on this particular afternoon, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation with many of them around things that they are involved in. So I think that I'll start off first with Miss Graham, Lisa Graham, who I was going to have join with me some time back and who is involved in the world of music and is definitely living over there in Canada. So definitely wanted to have folks join and learn more about what Lisa Graham is all about and about her music. So Lisa, glad that you could join me. How are you doing over there in Canada? How are things going over there in your part of the world? I mean, y'all are part of North America, but definitely a lot of times folks are concerned about how things are going there, both culturally, musically, as well as how y'all are coping with the pandemic that is hitting us all over the world. So if you would share with us a little bit about how things are going on in your part of the world and how you are coping there in Canada.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for having me on your show today. I really appreciate the opportunity. And we're actually, you said you had some rain there. Well, we are sunshine. We had some rain and cold a couple days ago, and now the sun's back out. So it's nice to see that sun. And yeah, so everything here is absolute chaos. We're not seeing a lot of live music. I am a flute player. I teach music. I perform. I play as a session musician. I'm part of a couple ensembles. I play with the Celtic punk band here in Calgary called the Shillelaghs. And we are definitely feeling the lack of live shows. So it's been a lot of producing music. We're writing new music with the Shillelaghs. I've been creating new music, finding new ways to teach, and yeah, it's different, but I think there are some really great things that are coming out of this. We're bringing that technology in, and I think it's positive in that way. It's sad not to get out and play, but yeah, it's an exciting new challenge from my perspective.
It sounds like it's a real big new challenge for you and everything along those lines. But one of the things I was curious about is you said one of the bands you plays in is a Celtic band. I don't think anybody really associates Celtic music with Canada and Calgary. So how did that come about? Because like I said, is there an active Celtic music scene there in Calgary, or is this something that y'all have discovered more recently? Because like I said, when I think of Celtic music, I definitely think of places like Ireland and, of course, places that have a rich Irish tradition, but I don't know how many Irish folks are there actually in Canada. So how did that whole thing of the Celtic music come about in your career?
Well, I've always been interested. I have backgrounds. Part of my family is from Scotland. So we have a little bit of family history. It's always fascinated me. That style of music, I've always loved it. And I played it. I'm a classically trained musician. And I've played it on and off over the years with various ensembles, a lot of self-study. I kind of have the affinity to play that. And I don't always get an opportunity. I love playing that style of music in a group. And I do want to learn more, get into more of those details of the nuances. So I wanted to go over to Ireland or somewhere and actually study the style of the music a little bit more. So I have taken bagpiping lessons, and that has helped a lot, actually. And we have a pretty good community of a Scottish community here. It's kind of underground, but if you know the right people and you start getting in it with it, we have Highland games. We used to have some south of where I lived in a smaller town called Okotoks, and another place called Canmore. It's about an hour's drive away. And there was another one about 3 hours away. So we do have these celebrations of Scottish culture. And the Shillelaghs have been around for a long time. I'm a recent join. I joined them for their third studio album, and I think the group has been together for at least 12 years, and I've only been with them for maybe 4 or 5 at this point. So we actually connected through Kijiji, a little classifieds website, and I saw they were looking for a violinist to come play in their Celtic punk band, and I said, well, I don't play violin, but I can come play flute or piccolo for you. So I play piccolo with them, and we're inspired by like Flogging Molly, all those greats, and we're kind of putting our own spin. Most of the music we do is original, and we released our latest album in November last year. It's called Ripples in the Rye, and it was such a fun experience for me as a classically trained musician to step out of that comfort zone a little bit and get into creating and performing all from memory. We don't have sheets. It's a very, very fun experience. I very much enjoy my time with them.
It sounds like it's a real fun band. Sounds like you really enjoy yourself performing with them. How are you doing in terms of like the training with teachers and in terms of like your students? Because you're a teacher as well. So how are you coping with teaching music in this new age of COVID and everything? Because I imagine that's got to be a big challenge. I'm imagining you're using platforms like Zoom and platforms like that. But how are you able to engage your students there in the Calgary area?
Well, I have to say, all of my students are really great. They're eager to learn. I don't have any of those students that I kind of have to drag kicking and screaming. So that makes a huge difference. Some of the challenges we've run into, some of my more advanced students were getting to the point where you need to hear the nuances in order to guide them and make them a little bit more just kind of refine what they're doing. And a lot of times the audio equipment they have, they're running off of laptops, is just not good enough to catch those nuances. So thankfully, a lot of my students, they're late beginners into intermediate. So a brand new beginner, I think, would be very challenging. I haven't had to deal with that yet. And the more advanced students are more challenging, but those in between, there's so much to work on with them to make them better players that the technology has been good. And also what I've been working on as a teacher, I have 2 engineering degrees, so I gravitate toward technology and solving problems and all this. My undergrad is in software engineering, and I have a master's in biomedical engineering. So to bring all this technology in, I've had an interest in playing with recording software, and I look at this as a great opportunity to introduce my students to some of the technologies we use as musicians or we can use. So I had them working with recording software, seeing some of the tricks we can do with it, how we can change our sound, how we can play duets, trios, quartets as one person by layering tracks. So for our recital in June, that's how we did our presentation. Instead of performing live, I had them working with recording software. It was all recorded. They introduced their pieces live, and then they played their recording. And if they put a video with it, great. So it's I've been kind of embracing the technology and thinking of ways I can still teach music and musicality and embrace these technologies and integrate them in so they're still learning skills. And perhaps they're going to find something new that they didn't know they were interested in out of it.
That sounds wonderful. I'm actually going to have to introduce you to one of our founders here on IBM.TV, but Kimberly Calhoun, who's one of our executive producers, also comes out of that engineering background. And actually, she's like one of the main founders of this particular platform. So definitely, I'm going to see if I can't invite her, maybe even during the course of our conversation here, to come in and join in our conversation, because I know that she also comes from that engineering background, so she'll be glad to know that you're involved in that as well. So definitely, we definitely looking forward to hearing you talk more about that and how you're incorporating a lot of that into your music. Now, for those, and I want to bring in some of my other guests as well who aren't familiar as much with Calgary. I mean, I know a lot of folks will think of Calgary in the sense of hockey and maybe a couple of other attractions, but what about Calgary? Can you tell folks that when we do get out of COVID and get out of this pandemic that we're in, that they would like to know about your city that might attract them to come visit you when folks are able to visit? We know right now that folks are not visiting around the world because of the pandemic, but just tell us a little bit of the highlights of Calgary and some of the things that you really enjoy about that particular region of Canada.
For sure. Well, I have been doing a lot of hiking this year, getting outdoors. We have, of course, Banff is nearby. It's a couple hours away. The mountains are close. The foothills are close. There's a ton to do there. And most people do that. But there is actually a lot in Calgary that we have to offer. So we have a lot of great parks. They're wonderful to walk around in. We have a disc golf course. I've really been enjoying the disc golf this year. It's 18 baskets, and it's basically, instead of having golf clubs and golf balls, you have frisbees you throw around. It's really fun. So the parks in Calgary are fantastic. I visited one a couple weeks ago, and we got into the middle of the park, and you look around for 360 degrees, and you can't tell you're in the city. So it's quite amazing. Our park system's great. And we do, along with the park system, we have a couple rivers that run through the city, and there are some paths along there. So for biking, rollerblading, walking, there's great opportunities there, and they do link up with a lot of our parks. And what else does Calgary have to offer that's really fantastic? We have, of course, some of the tourist attractions, the zoo, and we have an old-time park called Heritage Park. So in the city, there's quite a bit to do. As always, for the shoppers and the people who like to eat, lots of restaurants, lots of shopping. We've got a great outlet mall close to here. So yeah, there's a lot to offer, and the outdoor activities, I think, is one of the top things I would suggest.
Sounds great. Like I said, I definitely want to bring in some of my other guests as well, but I do want you to stick around and continue with the conversation. But I do want to bring in Miss Hall, who is an artist here in the area and definitely has been involved for a number of years in the art community. So definitely glad to have you on with us, Miss Hall. If you would, I'd love to hear you share a little bit about your background in the arts and how you got involved in the art world. Because like I said, definitely I know that that's the things that folks will be interested in. And also, I don't know, have you ever visited Calgary? Because our other guest so far is from Calgary, Canada. So I don't know if you've ever had the chance to go to Canada.
I have been to Canada driving through because I spent 25 years in Alaska. So we drove through Canada a couple of times, but no, I didn't spend too much time there. I plan to do that, though. I'd love to do that. Hi, I'm glad to be with you today. Yes, I'm Sheila Hall, and known as the artist S.J. Hall. And I'm a retired educator. I taught art for nearly 20 years and then became a principal because I was an advocate for the arts and art education. And I got tired of them talking about cutting the art program, so I decided to get into administration so I could have a little bit more say-so about it. But I'm happy now to be retired and just doing my art, making art and sharing art with others.
Yeah, but you're doing a great job with that. Are you even concerned now about the arts? Because I know on this show, as well as other shows that we've been involved with, a number of folks are feeling that the arts isn't getting enough support. I'd also love to hear from Ms. Graham as well. But since you've got that administration background, I was wondering, how are you feeling that we're doing in terms of supporting our kids with the arts and in terms of actually even training them in the arts? So I'd love to hear your thoughts as to how we're doing as a country and globally in terms of like letting folks know the importance of art.
Okay, yes, I do feel like that the art is still a very very important part of education. That was my experience as a young person growing up in rural North Carolina. It was the art classes that kept me engaged and really excited about getting to school. And thank God it kept me into my lessons and deciding to go into art education. To be honest, I wanted to go to art school, and my mother said, well, you got to be able to make some money, so why don't you go as an art teacher? So that's how that happened, and I'm so glad that she did that because that became my fight. I was in the Anchorage School District for 25 years, and each time that they would talk about cutting the arts, I would talk about how that the arts not only made a well-rounded student, but it would also pull in those students who didn't have that self-esteem or didn't feel like they were an A student and get them more engaged. I did come back to North Carolina and teach for 5 years in my rural town of Bewellville, North Carolina. And there I started the Art Honor Society, again, just to let the students know that, yes, you can achieve through your arts, and you had to keep a grade point average to be in Art Honor Society. And I was able to get some of what they called then the at-risk children to really be engaged in their education. They had to rise to the top of their grade point average to be officers. Because, of course, art is a means of expression. Mm-hmm. And so many times that is overlooked by the people pushing the pencil there, counting the numbers. North Carolina, though, I feel has done a good job with that. That's, of course, where I came from, and it just kept me grounded in my education. So it's just it's hard though that every time they start trying to figure out where to cut, that always comes up. I think that's always going to be a problem that we have. But nowadays, even with the movements that are going on now and the murals and the community coming together to do art, you see the unity that happens using the arts. I think some of the best times here in our North Carolina area are our art festivals, where we get to see all the talents of all the diversity and the talents, and people come together to enjoy the arts.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. How are things going in terms of art education in Canada, Ms. Graham? Are y'all having the same issues in terms of like cuts in the arts program and things of that nature? So is that something that's a global issue, and are you facing that as well?
Yes, that's definitely it. Every time they talk about any sort of cuts in education, the arts are the ones that get it, and it's something that extremely frustrates me, because I know how important it is. I've basically, my life so far has been all about arts and sciences. While I was doing engineering, I was doing music. While I do music, I'm still doing more scientific adventures. And it's one of the reasons I have a business as well called YYC Beeswax. And the aim of that is to take the arts and the sciences and bring them together. So it's just another form of expressing that. And I don't think it's well enough supported in schools at all levels, all the way through the universities down to our very beginnings of the schools. The creativity component, I think it's very much stifled in the way the school systems are run.
Yep. And I'm also thinking, as you were saying that, unfortunately, we don't get enough of the people making the connection between the arts and the sciences. And I think that they're very much connected. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that relationship. We do hear people talking about STEM, and we do hear sometimes people making it STEAM when they add the art component. But I was wondering if you could just share your experience in that. And I also love to hear from Ms. Hall as well in terms of like how we can make that greater connection between science and the arts.
Yeah, well, for me, when I'm teaching music, I'm bringing in everything I know. So music is very mathematical. Teaching fractions, we use fractions when we're doing music. In playing the flute and any kind of instrumental playing or singing, there's a physiology component to it. You're working with muscles. You're looking at the anatomy. So it's so scientific. We can break it down the way the instrument works. The flute, I remember when I was doing my engineering studies, I took a physics class and we did acoustics. It's all about vibrations and how air is moving through a closed pipe. That's how the flute works, or strings, how they work. So it's all really based on science, and we can go back to the sciences and the math. And I think it's a great tool to take the kids who are not necessarily engaged in those subjects and make them more interesting for them. So they love the music component and they hate math. So how can we make math more fun through music? And I've actually had some of my students, once they see that, you see the light bulb go on and all of a sudden they like math again. So it's, I think it's so important to go both ways.
Yeah. Very much true. How important has it been in terms of like incorporating science even in your art work and everything, Ms. Hall? So how have you incorporated science, or have you incorporated science into your artwork? So I just wondering if you could talk about that.
Yes, I also have a part of my business called Color Speaks Art Experiences, where I go out in the community and teach classes. Now, after 30 years with children to high school students, now I work mostly with senior citizens. I love doing that. But still, so many of the art processes are scientific, whether we're working with color theory, working with sculptures. But I always, as an educator, integrated arts into the subject that the teachers were teaching, just to link it in so that the students could see how art and science work together. Color mixing, mixing compounds for sculptures. So much of the arts is science.
Yep, that's very true, that we know that the arts is science, and just tie that all together and everything. I do want to bring in my third guest and everything. So I'm going to bring in Crystal Body Smith, who is also involved in being a person in the creative field. Crystal has actually written a book because of things that were going on in her life and all of that. So it's actually a book about something that we all unfortunately have to deal with, which is that concept of grief as well, because we know that unfortunately with COVID, a lot of folks are also having to deal with grief in their life as well. So, Crystal, glad that you could join us. We've got this great conversation going on around the arts and things of that nature. But if you would, share a little bit about your book, what the book's all about, and then we'll continue the dialogue and the conversation around the arts, around education, around what's going on in the world. But I definitely wanted to hear from you, Crystal, and if you could tell a little bit about your book.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for having me today. I want to say hello to the guests. And, it's interesting that you brought me in today with the subject being art. It makes me think about the most recent, surprise that we had in the industry with the artist Chadwick Boseman, who was certainly a great artist. He was known for playing Jackie Robinson in 2013, and then, of course, James Brown and Thurgood Marshall, and then, of course, for all his great awards that he got with the Black Panther. But what people didn't know, behind the camera, behind the scenes, what they didn't know was that in 2016, this man was diagnosed with colon cancer. And he was dealing with this secretively. His family may have known, but it just makes me wonder, and it just brings to light an amazing thing that we all need to think about right now. How many other people are in situations like that? Now, in his case, I'm sure he was well prepared. He had the necessary things in place, and he was able to do what he needed to do because of his accomplishment and his success. But oftentimes in everyday life, there's so many people in the lower income brackets. There's so many people in the inner cities that are not prepared. We see so many GoFundMes and we see all those kind of things. So when you all brought this topic up today, I said, wow, this is like really so timely, because it's a perfect example. May Chadwick Boseman rest in peace, but it's just another wake-up call. It's another wake-up call about how people go on every day, and we see them at work, we see them on TV, we see them, and we never know what's going on deep down in their lives. We don't know what their situation is because some of them don't tell us. And that is why I wrote the book. That is exactly why I wrote Final Wishes, okay? Because I saw that happen. I saw that happen as well. And so what I would like to say is I'm just like you. I'm just an average person. I had some losses in my family. I lost my mom, my dad, my brother to cancer. My sister has had cancer 4 times, and she's had 3 brain surgeries and a stroke. And when I saw some of the things that happened, and when I heard some of the stories that we've heard them at the funerals, we've seen the drama, I said, you know what? This is an area that is not discussed enough. This is the area that's swept under the rug, and people really need to bring some awareness to this area. And now with COVID-19, with the pandemic and all these deaths coming, still people are not prepared. And so I'm so happy that you allowed me to come here today so we can bring light to this very, very important topic that we need to discuss, because it is a part of life. The book is called Final Wishes, A Transition. It's actually a guide for transition from life to death. And it's something that people don't want to talk about, but it really, really, really needs to be dealt with and discussed.
Yep, that's very true. We need more and more people thinking about these things. Sometimes it's real hard to talk about those kind of decisions and everything, just because a lot of times folks don't want to deal with that final reality. I'm actually trying to go for, and I jokingly have said on this show that I'm trying to go for 200, even though we know that that's not a realistic goal. But sometimes you got to set those unrealistic goals in order to keep things going and everything. But definitely, I do know that folks have to have those thoughts in their mind about how they're going to cope with the end when that comes, and also the end for their parents and other people in their lives. So definitely this is part of life, and it's part of what we have to conversate about and all of that. I do want to bring in, I think it might be my 5th and final guest, but I've also got Bob Williams, who is actually very much involved away from the arts. But one of the other things that folks are also very much involved in and they care a lot about, and particularly I mentioned it earlier in this show, is sports. And Bob, you're involved with golf. You're actually a golfer yourself. You've done a lot of work in the golf field. So I was wondering if you could share with our folks a little bit about your career with golf and how you're doing this great education and even getting our kids involved in this game of golf. I know that when my dad was young, he was involved with the Algonquin Club, which was a tennis club for young people in that era. And my uncle Randy Walker, is an avid golfer. At least he was before facing a number of health issues himself. So he's had a number of strokes and other things. So he's not out on the golf course the way he was when he was more active. But I was wondering if you could just share with our folks a little bit about your history and a little bit about the golf program and what you're doing.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, we have been involved in the golfing world for some time now. I think I really got back into it at a late stage in my life. It was back in about '93. But in 2004, I launched a company, Golf Tournament Productions. And what we do is we work with nonprofits to help raise money for whatever cause they're campaigning. We decided that chicken and fish fries are good, but if you want to make some real money, you have to do some real things. And golfing is one of those tools that you can use to make what I call impact money, money that can make a difference in whatever, again, campaign cause you're campaigning. Now, as a result of me working in this arena, I've been able to work with just a plethora of people. I mean, from all walks of life. I've actually had elderly ladies on golf courses taking pictures with me with golf clubs in their hands, things that they have never done before in their lives. And of course, as you stated, we work with children programs, with youth as well, again, in the fundraising area. In May of 2020, I was inducted into the African American Golfers Hall of Fame for my company because of my impact that I do have on the African American community. We're obviously very excited about that, and COVID has slowed us down a little bit, but we have a lot of things we're working on now that's going to hopefully blossom once the doors are open for us to get back to whatever normal will be going forward. So that's just a little bit, Mark, about who we are, what we do, and kinds of things that we have been working with. If you have any specific questions, I'll be more than happy to try to address them.
I appreciate that. One of the things I was going to ask you is how are folks coping with golf in terms of COVID? Because like I said, I imagine many of the golf courses are closed, so you can't really get out and golf the way that you would like to. But maybe I know the gyms are starting to open up, so I don't know if the golf courses are starting to open up. Are folks starting to get out there and starting to golf more? Because when I think of folks wanting the things to do, exercise is definitely something that even the CDC is encouraging more and more people to do. And I think that you can actually keep some social distancing going with golfing because you're not that close to the other competitors and everything. So have the golf courses opened up, and also what are your thoughts about just sports opening up in general? Like I said earlier in the show, I mentioned the NBA finals. I know they're in that bubble. The bubble seems to be working well for them, but I was just wondering what your thoughts are about sports opening up in general. And then last but not least, I'd like to hear you talk about sports as it relates to education, because I do think that sports is another part of those things, like the STEM stuff that we were talking to the ladies about earlier. So I'd love to hear you talk about sports as a STEM aspect as well.
Okay, as far as the golfing is concerned, Mark, they never did close the golf courses. As a matter of fact, it's difficult to even get a tee time to play. One of the biggest things that they've done at the courses, of course, to work with to keep people safe, is that a lot of the courses you're not allowed to go into the clubhouse to sign up to, if you're planning on playing around. What they do is they set really amazed that there's and I want to tell you something that I just people are giving more money away now than they have ever done before. I'm talking about donations to different causes, not just in the golfing world, but in all other aspects of fundraising as well. If you are planning on, if you have an organization and your goal is to raise money for, again, some cause that you're campaigning, now is the perfect time to get some type of program in place that will allow you to solicit donations, because folks are just, I'm truly amazed at the amount of money that folks are actually giving out to folks, again, that are working for certain causes. So, but as far as the golfing world is concerned, you can barely get a tee time now at the courses, because again, the social distances, like you said, Mark, is not a problem at all, because golfers we're not on top of each other playing golf. It's you and that little ball, you and that little ball, that little frustrating ball for about four and a half hours when you're out playing. And of course, when you play with friends, like most of us do, they even allow us to drive different golf carts. You have your own cart. Normally you have two people on a cart, but now most of the courses are allowing you to drive your own cart, just to kind of keep the safety factor in mind. But I'm amazed. I'm just amazed at just what is going on now in the world of fundraising. Not, like I said, not just only in the golfing world, but if there's any message that anyone's going to take away from this conversation, please, you need to look at whatever it is you're doing. You need to go ahead and enhance that and put that in the form so that you can take advantage of the generosity that's being shared among everyone out here as far as fundraising is concerned. Now, with sports and education, I don't have to tell you, sports is a perfect tool to help keep a young person on track. The idea of competing, and not just the competitive part, but the peer pressure part. When most sports require team play, and what I've found is young people respond more to peer pressure than they do to an adult. And if you are involved in any kind of sport activity where team play is involved, your partners, your teammates, they put pressure on you to help you keep your grades up, for you to get better at your skills. I mean, sports does those kinds of things to a youthful person, especially if you have a problem child that's getting into trouble. You really want to push that kid into some kind of event, some kind of competition that would spark an interest in them that will help turn that kid around. I mean, I've seen it happen so many times. Some kids, they don't focus in school, but they like to play basketball. So you push and you push and you push them into that basketball thing, and that will actually help that kid turn around, get their lives back together. And then, like I said, that peer pressure kicks in, and that peer pressure is what's going to really have them start getting their lessons. And Mark, I just can't begin to tell you just how much I think how important sports is in our lives, and you can take that even further than sports, but that's the area that I'm more familiar with. So I'm going to kind of leave it right there.
No, I appreciate that. Definitely great comments that you're making, and I definitely agree that sports is something that a lot of folks can relate to, and a lot of folks can definitely have that kind of passion about and everything. I don't know if any of the young ladies were involved in sports when they were in school or anything of that nature, but I'd love to hear them talk about their experiences with sports and also how it might have played into their art development. So I'll start with you, Linda. Did you play these sports when you were in school, or did you just concentrate strictly on the music?
Well, for me, it was academics a long time before music took over. And actually, I played basketball, volleyball, and I had an ACL injury. And I had to take a season off of sports, and that was when I started to get heavier into music. And when I came back after my injury, nothing was the same anymore. So that was the end of my sports days. Then I went very heavy into music. And a lot of what I teach, most people don't realize that playing an instrument is a very physical activity. So integrating all that physical stuff, the muscle development, the breathing, all that comes into play when you're playing the flute.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Miss Hall? Did you play any sports, or did you leave the sports to other folks while you were doing the academic work, or did you get involved in the sports world at all, or do you even play golf?
No, I've never played golf, although I live now on a golf course, so I guess I need to learn how to do it since I'm living here in North Carolina on a beautiful golf course. But no, I will say now cheerleading is a sport. So I was the old cheerleader on the sidelines. But no, but you know what he was saying about how the sports really kept students tied in and to doing something other than getting in trouble. I feel the same way about the arts. Art and music it gives them a sense of self-esteem and pride. And to me, that's the biggest piece of the arts. When a student can feel that accomplishment by something they've created, you know, whether it's music, whether it's a piece of art, and builds their self-esteem and they feel better about themselves. You know, the old saying, when you know better, you do better. So that's why I feel like the arts is a really important part for our young people. And like I said, now I'm finding the arts a very important part of our seniors to keep them active. I love to see a senior sit down and they'll say to me, well, I can't draw this and I can't paint this. And I'll do a paint lesson with them. And when they finish, they each have a piece of a painting to take back to their room or to their apartment. And they're always just as proud as those students used to be. So, you know, just having that esteem builder is very, very important.
Well, that actually brings up an interesting question because, like I said, I've definitely been involved in the radio world for a number of years, worked in newspapers, worked in a number of other things. I've dabbled every once in a while in some acting, and I've done some other artistic things. My dad is actually a visual artist. He's actually done photography. He's done some other kinds of forms of the visual arts and everything. So Jim Lee and Bamboo Turtle has definitely been involved in that art world. But I'm one of those folks that actually think that I don't have any artistic skills. I'm having a hard enough time drawing a stick figure. And I definitely don't know that I have any musical skills, even though folks claim that I have this wonderful voice and everything that's used for the radio and everything. But to both you, Ms. Graham, and to you, Ms. Hall, is there any hope for those of us that think that we have no artistic talent in terms of like either the visual arts with you, Ms. Hall, and then I'll turn it on to you, Ms. Graham, as well. But like I said, I'm having a hard enough time drawing stick figures and don't know if I have any artistic skills. So what kind of advice would you give to those that think that they have no artistic skills?
Experiment, have some fun with lines and colors and shapes. And, you know, I love to take art from the canvas to the wardrobe. Now I'm in fashion. And so my paintings have become wearable art. And when people see that and just see that, oh, it doesn't have to be realistic, a realistic portrait or realistic still life. You can work with lines and shapes and get emotion out of the colors. And so then even a stick figure could be fun if you put it in the right background with colors and lines and shapes and show emotion. So, yeah, there's still hope.
All right. Well, I'm glad to know that. What about you, Ms. Graham? I know that I have tried to pick up instruments and everything. I remember way back when, and I'm in my late 50s, but when I went to school, I was in the band and everything. And I know that everybody thinks that minorities are supposed to have rhythm. Well, my band teacher thought that I failed in that lesson, and they basically kicked me out of the band because they were like, nope, you can't play the drums. He has no rhythm, so we're going to get you out of the band. So for those of us that think that there's no musical hope, is there musical hope for us?
I think there is hope for everybody. I mostly come through this when I'm teaching workshops on candle making through YYC beeswax, but for the music component, I've been part of a drum circle. That was an amazing experience, and I think I was the only musician in the room, and I saw how people locked in, and once they locked in, they got it. So I truly do believe those drum circles are very powerful, and if one instrument is not working for somebody, try something else. There's so many ways to be involved in music. You don't actually have to play an instrument. You can listen, you can appreciate, go out to live music when we can, support artists. There's ways when we're playing in the bars with my Celtic punk band, we've got people singing along, dancing. So any way to get involved in that music with physical movement or playing an instrument, I think you can still appreciate it and get a lot of the benefits. You don't have to actually play an instrument, but if you want to, there will be something out there for you to play.
Sounds good. I'm gonna have to see if I can't pick up one of those instruments and see if I can't figure out something that I want to play. Now, Bob, I'm not gonna leave you alone either. Like I said, my uncle was one that played golf. I've gone to those putt-putt courses and everything. You called it chasing that little white ball and everything. I have a hard time trying to figure out how you get it into those like distant holes that are way far away. So I've pretty much given up on golf for exactly that reason. So give me some words of encouragement as to why I should try to tackle the golf course when, like I said, my swing is probably lacking. A lot of other things are probably lacking. So if I came into the game, it's going to be late life like you. So I need you to tell me and other folks around the world, because we are a global community here at IBM.TV, as to why we should try to tackle that golf ball.
We have instinctively that competitiveness in us, and golf does that. It allows you to be competitive. And the thing, golf is the only sport where you are literally playing by yourself. I mean, the ball doesn't move. The ball just sits there, and all you have to do is hit it. And that sometimes can be one of the most difficult things in the world to do. But the one thing that I think that just overwhelms everyone in the world of golf is that you could play golf as long as you could walk. As long as we have guys coming out on the golf
wheelchairs, and they got little gimmicks, little automatic swingers and things like that. But I mean, physically, as long as you are physically able to move something, you could play golf, which is something I think is phenomenal, because playing golf is I think it's helping me to take better care of myself. You know what I mean? I mean, eating the right foods, exercising, it does things like that to me mentally, because I want to continue to have fun playing golf. And I know I'll enjoy it more if I have my own mobility. So I am very careful as to the things I do and the foods I eat, because I want to maintain my health and so that I can chase that little ball around the golf course. So I guess, I mean, I sung a little high on this thing, but I feel really confident, and I'm happy about where I am in my own skin doing this thing, because it is really helping me. I know, and the guys that I play with, you know, when we go out, man, it's cutthroat. You want to beat everybody you play. And of course, you know, in order to do that, you have to keep getting better and better. So it forces you to go out and practice and everything. Marc, you would love the game if you really give it a chance, I'm sure.
I might have to give it a shot and everything. Now, one of the other things I've heard people complain historically about the game was it always had that kind of country club mentality, and it was seen as a game that might be out of the reach of many folks. But it seems to me that you're trying to counter that you're trying to make it accessible to more and more folks. I know that whether it's Tiger Woods, who's definitely still competitive in the world of golf, or a number of other players that are starting to follow in that foot track that are minority golfers, or whether it's Venus and Serena in tennis, we are seeing more folks that are getting involved in what used to be called country club kind of sports. But could you talk about how you're trying to get more people involved and from all kinds of socioeconomic classes? Because it definitely seems like you're trying to shatter some of those myths that exist about golf, that it only exists for one class of folks.
Well, you know, in today's time now, we have access to, as African Americans, we have access to way more things now than we used to. And when I say we, I'm not just talking about people of in our age group. I'm talking about young kids. And little Johnny now is on the golf team, which is something that we did not have when we were coming along. Now, Grandma want to keep Johnny encouraged, and so in order for her to be able to keep Johnny's attention and help with that process, she needs to know what's going on the golf course so that she can talk to little Johnny about it. And so I pride myself on really sitting down with some of the, and I mean I'm elderly myself, but I pride myself on sitting down with people, especially people in our age group who are not familiar with the game of golf, and just sort of talking about it. And I'll tell you, what really got me thinking about this thing is I was sitting down years ago looking at Tiger Woods play in a tournament at my wife's, my mother-in-law's house, and some ladies came in from church that Sunday afternoon, and they came into the den where I was, and one of the ladies says, "Well, there's Tiger Woods," and I said, it was just amazing to me that she would pick him out like that, and
Yeah, definitely. A lot of folks are be amazed at that kind of thing and that kind of connection to Tiger Woods. I'm sure a lot of folks would be truly amazed at that, and that folks are definitely seeing that kind of engagement and everything. So I'm going to get to Crystal as well. Crystal, but one thing is, did you ever play any golf yourself or any sports? And then also, I'd love for you to talk about how you got involved in writing the book and what made you interested in the book. So I'd love to hear you talk about that as well. What made you decide to write a book? Because a lot of folks would probably be scared to write a book, but you went and dived right into it. So if you would share your own personal journey as to why you became an author, and are you self-published or did you go with a publishing house?
Yes, sir. Well, to answer the first question, yes, I did play a sport. I never played golf. My dad was a golfer, and I worked at the country club, so I got to see how that went from that angle. But I played sports and played a couple of instruments too. So I think all of it is important for children, especially because it helps develop them. It helps to give them a sense of discipline. And when you get on those teams, it really does give them a sense of commitment and help them to get more organized,
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it motivates these students to want to do better in school because you have to maintain a certain grade level to be able to participate, know. In regards to me writing a book, all it was is that I just didn't really want anybody else to go through what I went through. I knew that everybody had to deal with grief, and I knew that everybody was going to have to cope with making these plans, and I knew that it was something that it just not talked about, and I said, if I can prevent one person from encountering the thing that I had to encounter, because when my brother called me and he said he had 6 months to live and I had to go up to New York and do what I needed to do for him, and the doctors were asking me questions I couldn't answer because I didn't know any of the information. And so everything that I went through in that week, I made a decision when I got back home that I wanted to make sure I empower the next person. And then just seeing that we all have aging parents and people that a lot of times they go home and policies lapse and things happen and people can avoid certain situations. And I said, if I can help just a couple of families, I would love it. And insurance is not my background, but I'm a catalyst for hope. So I'm just kind of transparent, and whatever I encounter in life, I try to use it as a teaching tool. And yes, it was self-published. I had a young lady who was a publisher. She gave me some direction, and we kind of got together. And I didn't have any kind of skills when it comes to book writing, but from that, I've written 4 and published 2. And then I've also done a book with a couple of other ladies. So I think if everybody took their life story and whatever they've encountered, whatever they've overcome, and they shared that information, less people would have to go through those situations.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it seems to me that one of the things that we're talking about in this conversation is empowerment. Because when I hear all of y'all talking, it seems like that's one of the common themes is the ways that we use our different skills in order to empower ourselves and also to empower our community. So starting with you, Ms. Hall, I'd love to hear you maybe expound a little bit about what empowerment means to you and how you use your creative skills in order to empower others as well as yourself. So definitely seems to be a common theme is that of empowerment. So I'd love to hear from you, Ms. Hall, and then I'll come to you, Ms. Graham, as well. But definitely would love to hear y'all's thoughts on empowerment.
Well, what comes to mind to start off with right now, in these times that we're going through, I remember the week after George Floyd died. That was an emotional time for everyone. But you really saw how the artists poured out their emotion in murals. I painted a painting myself that week because I was already going through, what it was like now for all of us to wear masks. And so I did this painting of a woman with a mask on, but she's crying behind that mask because to me it was another mother having tears of injustice. And so to be able to pour those emotions out onto my canvas, it was not only healing for me, it was empowering for me to be able to share that statement. And so that's one reason I feel that, the arts are empowering. You can make such a bold statement and deal with the emotions and what's going on in the world and leave that bit of history. I mean, people will look at that painting years after I'm gone, and I made sure when I signed it, I put 2020 on it. And they will go back and, what made all of that emotion come out in that particular painting. So most of my paintings come from the emotions and what are happening in the time. Even if it's an abstract with just bold colors, there's always something symbolic behind it. And so that's one way that artists are empowering. And that same thing happens with an author and their pen and a musician and their instrument to be able to creatively, express themselves in that way.
Yeah, definitely. Ms. Graham, if you want to share your thoughts on empowerment and things of that nature, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Definitely here in the United States, as you heard people talking about, a lot of folks are concentrating around Black Lives Matter, but we've actually seen that become even a global phenomenon. So it's not just folks in the African American community or even folks just strictly in America that are being impacted. We know that some of the things that are going on in the sense of what's going on with police in terms of like even other minority communities are happening in places like Canada, in places like Europe, in places like Africa. So it's not just a North American problem, but it's a global problem. So I just wondered if you could share your thoughts on empowerment and also your thoughts around kind of some of the issues that we're seeing that are cropping up in the world in relationship to the ways that police are dealing with young people and others.
Yeah, for sure. So in the empowerment piece, for me, music has always been something that's helped me work through issues myself. And I've used the arts, different arts. I do a lot of crafting as well. And with YYC Beeswax, the candle making and all that. So I've always used art as an outlet for me. And it's created a lot of healing, whether I'm performing on a stage or just even in my practice room. If I'm having a bad day, I can get a little bit of an outlet by playing for a while. And it's I guess the key for me in that empowerment is the healing component. Same thing as we were mentioning when you're creating a piece of art. It's so empowering, and I want to bring that to other people because I know how much healing you can get from it. And when you have the ability to do something that heals yourself, I think that's very empowering for other people. So if I can take what I know and teach someone else these skills, it empowers them to improve their life as well. So for me, it started with my own healing journey, and now I feel like I can pass it on and help other people in their own journeys. It doesn't necessarily have to be healing. They can be working through self-confidence issues. We can work through that. I make my students perform. I think that's it's very important part about being a musician is to get up in front of people and perform, even if you're scared. We're working on the public speaking skills. And it's creating all of these softer skills that they don't necessarily learn in school. And that's going to help them and help them to feel better about themselves when they actually do get out into the real world. And we have been for the Black Lives Matter movement. I've been part of conversations here locally. We've been discussing how we can improve things for everybody. For me, as a young female technical expert, that's been my only experience being discriminated against. It was not a pleasant experience. And I can look at that experience and empathize as much as I can, but I feel like I will never be able to fully understand. So through these conversations we've had through one of the networks I'm part of, we're bringing stories to the forefront, learning some of the challenges people have, and we're learning as a community how to better support people. So this group is a group of business owners, and we want to be able to support each other. We want to support our employees, any employees we have, people we work with, and of course the community we serve. So I know in our specific area, well, through Canada, we've been having over the last few years a lot of discussions around our Native American populations and some of the things that went on. And for me, my generation is so removed from those decisions that a lot of that understanding, bringing that out into the open, is eye-opening for me, because we didn't learn this in school, and I think it's very important. We should be learning about this so we can move forward in a positive way. So it's all things we need to work on as individuals, and I think as we work on them individually and in our communities, our societies are going to become better as a result.
No, I definitely agree with you on that and everything. You actually brought up some interesting points and everything. One is the fact that I agree that so many of the school systems around the world don't do a good enough job of teaching aspects of history, whether that's the Native American history, whether that's the African American history, because I think sometimes we get caught up in the hero worship and just the heroes of the movement. So like I said, not knocking Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or folks like that, or even Harriet Tubman, but there were a number of other heroes other than those that don't get talked about at all. So I'd love to hear Bob's reflections on that. But before getting to Bob, I did want to hear a little bit more about the women in technology aspect of what you're doing as well, because I do think that a number of women in certain fields don't get the recognition that they should get. And we know that whether it's teaching or whether it's technology, that there are pay gaps that exist. So is that some of the stuff that your organization is dealing with? And could you share a little bit about how y'all are trying to combat some of those injustices?
Yeah, well, I guess going back to my engineering studies, as a software engineer, women make up about 25% of the population when I went to university, and that was actually the larger population out of all the engineering programs. I think it was in Canada, it might have been North America, so the numbers are growing within engineering. And I felt very supported until I went on this project. So I was sent overseas to be consulting as a technical expert on a project. And I was at customs, and they wouldn't believe me. I had all my paperwork from the company, the host company, that says, yes, I'm coming in, I'm doing some technical work. And I was quite young. I was early 20s. And the customs officer didn't believe that somebody of my age and my gender could do something like that. So I almost had to turn around and get back on a plane and come back to Canada, because they just didn't believe that I was capable of doing it. So that was a very, very interesting experience when you get off a 9-hour flight and you're tired, and it's not a pleasant way to start your trip, but it happened. Luckily, I did get into the country. I was traveling with a colleague, and I said, my colleague's right over there, and they let me through. But it was very, very stressful, and it was that first time that I really, really felt like I saw this discrimination. I've heard about it before, but I'd never experienced it.
Wow. Definitely. And we do know that goes on way too often and way too many times and all of that. But I was just wondering, Bob, if you could, I'd love to hear from you about some of your thoughts around education and how education isn't always teaching us about the figures that we should know about. Like I said, Lisa mentioned the thing about the Native American population, but there are a number of others that we don't hear about. Like I mentioned, we do hear about the heroes like Martin Luther King, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Malcolm X, but there are so many others that were part of that history that we don't hear about enough. So I was just wondering if you could talk about your own education background and what you learned in that regards. Waiting to hear from Bob, and hopefully Bob will give us his thoughts on that and everything. So see if I can't unmute this mic. But yeah, we're having a problem with that. So Crystal, maybe we'll go to you, and if you could share some of your thoughts about education and what education has meant to you. So I would love to hear you talk about education and what it has meant to you and some of those folks that we might have missed in the conversation around history.
Well, education is definitely important. I mean, you know what they always say, to the old cliche where they say knowledge is power. Well, I say applied knowledge is power. But the biggest thing is people don't have a quest for learning like they need to, you know. So I think that if we continue to do things like this to pique people's interest and share information, I think that's the best thing that has happened with this pandemic. Is more people are paying attention to stuff that's online. They're listening more. They're watching more. They're staying still more. You know, before all this happened, everybody was so busy and they was always doing something. And now they're stopping and they're seeing what's happening in the world. So I think this is the best time for us all to educate more people on the different important topics that they need to be listened to. And we can all empower each other, you know. I believe that that's what we're supposed to do. We all have a journey and we all have a story and we all have a purpose here on this life, and we should be empowering each other. I'm a former educator also as well. So, you know, my background is kind of broad when it comes to some of the topics that you talked about here. But I just want to thank you for the opportunity just to even be here, to hear these people talk about these different topics and to just exchange. It's always good to be amongst your people and have some good dialogue. I think we need more of that because some of us have been in the houses and been alone and haven't had too many conversations. So that's what I like about these StreamYards and Zooms. We get to engage more, you know. It's kind of like what Miss Hall said, you know, sometimes with those people with the painting and stuff. So all this is so good. All of this is empowering and uplifting.
Yeah, definitely very true about that. Miss Hall, are you finding yourself doing more creative work during this time and everything? Because I have heard a number of people that are saying that they're doing even more during this COVID time than they thought they might have done before. And a number of folks have even encouraged others to go out and do things that they never had done before. So like maybe they wanted to start a hobby or wanted to do garden, or I have a friend that's very much into their canning, and they're canning like regularly. I actually have jokingly told them that they need to start a canning business because they're canning all the time. So I was wondering, are you finding yourself doing more and more artwork during this time that we have more time at the home, or you decided that you were doing more before COVID, or is this actually opening up the world of your doing more at this time?
Yes, I have been very busy, and Lisa can appreciate this. I had never done a virtual sales vendor fair before. I have done a couple of those now where we did online shopping shows. I'd never done that before. So I'm learning now how to use technology in different ways. I was supposed to have a huge art exhibit in October at the Gardner Performing Arts Center, which of course has been canceled. So now they're going to do an interview and an art slide presentation. So I had to learn how to do that. And more than anything else, I've had people ask me to make masks with my art on it. So I had to pull out the old sewing machine, get my fabrics made. And I've been really busy doing that. So yes, I've been creative and I'm learning a lot that I probably wouldn't have done. I was not really fond of technology. But I'm an educator, so I'm always willing to learn. So I'm jumping in there, really trying to learn to keep, because this is going to be our new normal.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, all four of you, what's the thing that, as you have developed your career, both in the COVID era as well as even before COVID, what's the thing that you have learned about yourself that most shocks you? Because I think that when we go into self-realization and start really looking at ourselves, we're surprised about different aspects of ourselves. So I'll start with you, Bob. Is there something about this whole journey of life and definitely what's going on now that has surprised you about yourself? So what's something that has surprised you about what you have developed or discovered about yourself?
I think he has sound.
Yeah, Bob's having a hard time, so we'll see if I can't get him off of mute or everything. Yeah, might have to bring him back into the conversation and then come back. So definitely, hopefully Bob will maybe kick himself out and then come back in. But I'll start with you, Lisa. What's something that you've learned that really surprised yourself about your journey? Because like I said, you've done so much. You've done engineering, you've done music, you've done a number of other things. So what's something in your journey that actually surprised you about your own personal growth and your personal journey?
Well, I'm not sure it comes as a big surprise. It kind of, it did sneak up on me, but it's not necessarily a huge surprise. I know I love to work. I love to be productive, and it caught up with me. So I was dealing for probably about the last 2 years with burnout, and it was getting worse and worse. I finally got that addressed, and went right around the time when everything shut down here in March. About a week after everything shut down, all of a sudden I was feeling better. So I know for me, I pushed myself too hard, and I have my hands in too many pies. And it's all a learning experience for me. I have to learn to maybe pull back, do a little bit more self-care at times, and be a bit gentler with myself. So that's kind of my learning experience that came out of the whole burnout issue. Feeling much better now, and I'm just trying to find that balance again where I can still do all the work I love to do, but not take it too far.
That makes a lot of sense. I'd love to hear Miss Hall and what she's got to say about some of the things that she's learned about her life as she's moved from being in the academic world to concentrating totally on art. But I do must just say to you, Lisa, and everything, that I think that we all can relate to that concept of having to say no, because I know that that's sometimes a big battle that I have to fight, because oftentimes folks will want to ask you to do tons of things, and there's only a limited amount of hours in the day and a limited amount of minutes in the day. So unfortunately, even though we would love to do it all, we can't always do it all. And I know that a lot of times we're having like 5 or 6 folks pulling at us in different directions. And if you add family and if you add other obligations to your life, then it really becomes a mess sometimes. So I can definitely relate to that at even 58, having to do that. So definitely it's something that we all battle with. So Ms. Hall, what are some of the things that you've learned? And if you want to talk to her about to try to deal with that concept of saying no, because I know that sometimes artists have to say no too. And the other thing that I know artists have to do is a lot of times artists would like to get paid for their artwork. And a lot of times folks are trying to ask them to do artwork, in my mind, too much for free. I know that that's a regular conversation I have with my dad, because a lot of times folks will ask them to, present their art, show their art, or even display their art. And a lot of times they're not getting any sort of reward for it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, you're right about that. That happens a lot. But what I have decided now that I'm an entrepreneur, I'm in a group that called the Praying CEOs. And one thing that I realized that every business that is successful gives back to the community. Right. So I decided that the teaching side of my art is the part that I can give back to the community. And just before the COVID shutdown, I was geared up and doing classes at the Garner Senior Center, and in the Elders Peak Senior Center, and working with seniors. And so now in this new way of doing things, I've just been asked to do a class for a sorority group, a virtual art class, which I was trying to stay away from, but okay, I said no enough, so I'm ready to give back to the community. So I'm going to gear up to do some virtual classes, something simple and fun, just so everybody can get back to expressing themselves and using the healing art.
Yeah, definitely. And what are some of the things that you've learned about yourself, Crystal, that surprised you or that you were shocked about that as you continue to grow, and definitely during this COVID era? So what are some of the things that surprised you? I know that you're very much involved in a number of businesses and things of that nature. And then you just heard Lisa talking about the fact that she sometimes was feeling burnt out, but then she got over that. And I know a number of folks do feel that they're pulled at it from various directions. So how have you been able to balance things, and what are some of the other things that you've learned? Hold on one second.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. So here's the biggest thing I want to leave with you guys, because this time is going and I definitely have another meeting as you speak about having many things to do. But one of the things I want to say that I've learned is what's important. I think a lot of people have taken a lot of family and a lot of things for granted. And this pandemic, I think, woke a lot of people up, and it made people think that time is of the essence. A lot of people thought they had a lot more time. And even though we say it all the time, this pandemic, I believe, was a reality check. And for me, it pushed me to dig deep within myself, and it pushed me to understand that I can't rely on no corporation or no one else because of all the reductions in hours and the layoffs and all the things that transpired after COVID-19. It pushed me to dig deep within myself, and it pushed myself even more, and I've been able to achieve a lot more during this time. So what I learned most of all is that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and that everything that I already knew deep down, I just put it into action, because I didn't have any choice. I didn't have any distractions. I didn't have any choice but to do for me, because I had to social distance and I had to stay here and I had to protect myself and I had to protect my family. So I just tapped inside of myself and did what I needed to do for my family, to build my legacy, and to go ahead and make an impact the way I want to in this world. So guys, I really have to get out of here because I have a meeting and I have been pretty much.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely want you. Yeah, I know you've got to get ready to bounce, but if you would, real quickly, if you would share with our listeners how they can reach you, how they can learn more about the book, and one of the things as we wind down, and I'll get to the others as well because we'll keep the conversation going for a while. But Crystal, before you leave, I would love you to give your words of encouragement, because that's one of the things we try to do on all of the shows we do, is we try to have folks give a word of encouragement, whatever that word might be, and definitely to our global audience. So any words of encouragement, and also ways that folks can reach you if they're interested in learning more about what you've got going on.
Well, Mr. Lee, I want to thank you, and it's been a pleasure to see you, Miss Hall. I remember you from way back, and it's definitely good to meet you, Miss Graham. My word is definitely right there in my title. I'm a hope catalyst, so my word is always hope. I always say to keep hope alive. My mission in life is to stir up the gift, instill hope, and save lives. So that's what I do. And so I always like to encourage people to keep hope alive. A lot of people have faith, but they don't have that hope. And right now, you really have to have hope, because a lot of time people are by themselves more than they've ever been before. How can you reach me? I am Crystal Bodie Smith, and my website is www.iamcrystalbodiesmith.com. The book that I talked about today, and I would love to come back, Mr. Lee, to really just have a show just on this topic because it's that important. But the book can be found at Final Wishes by Crystal Bodie Smith. It can be found on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and people could just reach out to me. I'm on every social media platform under my name, Crystal Bodie Smith, or Shout Crystal. It's been indeed a pleasure to be here, and I want everybody to stay encouraged. Just know that you will get through whatever it is you're going through. Don't give in. Don't give up. Just continue to tap in. Just continue to use your faith and exercise your faith. And just don't get so consumed in what the media is saying and what the media is doing. Make sure you get some alone time by yourself and stay positive. Keep the positive energy around you and stay around positive people, and you will get through this. It's been my pleasure. I am Crystal Bodie Smith, and I bid you all Godspeed. Please be safe, be healthy, and just love one another. And I look forward to coming back and you having me back again, Mr. B.
Yep, definitely will have you back on again. Actually, as I like to say on the show, all of you are always welcome to come back once you're on the show. Once I try to bring folks back on a regular basis, and sometimes it's this roundtable discussion, sometimes it's more one-on-one, but definitely I will be trying to get you back into some more conversations, and the same invitation is extended to Bob, who was on earlier, and hopefully he'll pop back on, and definitely Miss Graham and Miss Hall as well. So definitely you do know that you're always welcome back, and I definitely appreciate your conversation and the words of wisdom that you were given. And I know that even though I know you've got to bounce off and everything, but if you can give a word of encouragement for folks that might be going through tragedy times. Well, actually, she bounced off, so we'll bring that back into the conversation later on. But that being said, Ms. Hall, I was wondering, she was talking about that downtime, and I do find that a lot of times folks don't try to do enough of that. They don't have enough of the downtime to get so caught up in things, whether it's the computer, whether it's work, whether it's whatever that's going on in their life. So what are some of the ways that you try to have some downtime? And do you even try to like have that time where you just kind of like try to turn it off, even away from the art world? Because I'm actually a believer that sometimes we need that meditation time, that time observing nature, or that time just that's not reflective so much on the computer or work. We know a number of folks are involved in digital learning, whether that's for school or whether that's digital work, meaning that they're using the computer for their work source and everything. But how do you deal with that, and how do you have your downtime? Are you a puzzler, or what do you do for your downtime? Hold on a second. I think you're on mute, so I have to unmute you there. Yep. What were you saying?
Yes, as I mentioned before, I'm a very spiritual person. So, and like I said, I'm part of a group called the Praying CEOs. And so I do really believe in my morning meditation time. And I have spent this downtime with COVID really growing flowers, and I have a deck full of planters. And I'm in another group called White Women Who Love Outdoor Living Spaces. There's thousands of us on that group now. It only started like a month ago. And so I love having my little oasis out there just to sit and enjoy nature. And even though it's my downtime, I keep a sketchbook and a pen everywhere beside my chair. So a lot of times I'll draw the flowers or draw, whatever. To me, drawing is relaxing. So that's how I've spent a lot of my downtime. And so some of those, my granddaughter and I are I have to talk to Miss Crystal again later, because my granddaughter and I have decided we're going to make a book. And she tells me that the name of the book is My Nana's an Artist and I Am Too. And I said, okay, we're going to do this.
That sounds like a great time.
And I love to paint and draw. So we'll do that for a series of coloring books or something we see in our future.
That sounds like this is going to be a great book, and a book that more and more folks will have to get to and check out and things of that nature. I should put both of y'all on the spot. I don't know if Lisa's got her instrument floating around or anything, but do you have any of your artwork that you can actually show our worldwide audience and everything if they wanted to take a look at it? So I don't know if you've got any artwork that you've got available that folks can take a look at, or that you can display, or that you can show Miss Hall. So like I said, I think I see one in the back that's in the background there.
This was called She Can, and I don't know if you can see the face among everything that's going on. There's still a strong woman in the background. I did have some slides I was going to show you, but I guess we don't have time to do that. I was going to see if I could screen share and show you.
We can do share screen, and we definitely still have time to do that and everything. So if you've got the website, or I can actually, share screen on there. So yeah, if you hit share screen, we should be able to see your screen as well. So if you hit that button that says share screen, I know that me and Ms. Graham would probably love to see some of your artwork, and then I might try to pull up, if it's okay with her. I know Ms. Graham has got some music on her website and things of that nature, so we might have to hear some of that music if she's not prepared to play any for us live.
I don't know if it's going to let me. I have never done StreamYard before, so I'm not sure if it's going to let me. You have to...
It should say share screen, the fourth button down and everything. Or if you have a website that we can go to, I can try to find that website and do it from this end as well. So definitely, if you got a website that you want to share with me, or that you want to let me know about, then we can do it that way. That's probably the best way.
Okay. Well, all right, because it's not letting me screen share. I was hoping to show you this one folder. But anyway, my website is sjhalldesign.com.
sjhalldesign.com. All right, we'll get ready to pull that up and everything. And while I'm doing that, definitely, Ms. Graham, if you would tell a little bit about some of the projects that you've got going on right now. Like I said, we know that there are a number of things you mentioned. Definitely what's going on with the Celtic band and the Celtic, I think it's like Celtic punk, which I think is a very interesting combination. But if you could share a little bit about some of the other projects that you're working on, then we would love to hear that as well.
For sure. So the Shillelaghs, my band, we are working on some new material. We've got, I think, 3 pieces we're working on right now. Hoping to be back in the recording studios within the next year doing another album. Personally, I have a brand new release out. So I work with bees, with YYC Beeswax. Part of what I do is beekeeping. And I was out there with a microphone. I bought a microphone and I was pulling some sound samples from the hive. So in June this year, I released, it's more of an ambient track. It's just over an hour long, and you get to hear the bees as if you're sitting in front of the beehive. And I did some flute improvisation over top of that. There's a piece I'm working on right now. I think it's going to be a solo flute piece. It's almost ready to be recorded, not quite there. And I've got a couple more ambient pieces I'm working on. One of them is with rain, and the other one is I live near the river, so I've done some sound sampling there. And I've been doing some session recordings, so I have a couple projects on the go helping people out with their albums. So I'm hoping those are going to be out. Those are going to take a while. They're only on the very beginning tracks of the album, so maybe within the next year it'll be released. And that's about where I'm at musically at the moment.
It sounds like there's quite a bit, and you got a lot of great things that are going on and all of that. So definitely there are a number of things that folks can relate to. I would love to hear both of you talk about your inspirations and who some of those inspirations are, because as I said, I know inspirations are very important, and I did put up that this is some of Miss Hall's work, and I did get the share screen so folks can see some of her work as well. So definitely folks can see the work and what the work is all about. So definitely we're seeing the images that are right there of some of Miss Hall's work, and that was just some of it that I shared, and I can also share another one as well. But as you can see, she's got some very vibrant and very wonderful, colorful work. So that reminds me, Ms. Hall, can you talk about some of the people that inspired you? Because like I said, there are a number of folks that I'm sure we're always inspired by various folks, but I was wondering who were some of the folks that inspired you and your own work. So I'd love to hear you talk about some of your own inspiration. So,
okay, can you still hear me?
yes.
Can you?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now I was thinking when you were talking about figures in history that sometimes we don't talk about. Faith Ringgold, who is still living, she's 89 years old now. When I first started in the arts and realizing that I was going to make that my career, I started studying about her, and I was during the time when she was trying to get into the Whitney Museum, and she was told that we don't display women, and especially Black women. And she used her arts to be very vocal at that time in women's rights. And then, of course, continued on into civil rights. And so she was kind of my muse. I loved the way she used. And one thing I really liked about Faith Ringgold, I've never been a realist, as you can tell by looking at my art. I'm pretty abstract with it. She wasn't either. She had a very folk art way of doing things. And that's where I learned that it was okay to be an artist that expressed with lines and color, and you didn't have to. I mean, the camera can take a realistic picture. You don't need an artist to do that necessarily. So it took me a while to realize I could be an artist without doing that. So let's see, I guess I can stop sharing. But yeah, so Faith Ringgold was one who really inspired me to become an artist.
Wow. And who are some of the folks that inspired you as well, Ms. Graham? Because like I said, I know there are a number of folks that are inspired by different musicians. I know we've even got some musicians here in the Carolinas. Of course, we have a very rich folk music tradition. I'm friends with like Joe Newberry and a number of others that come out of that folk music tradition, which is also very Celtic, very folk oriented as well. I think of Celtic music as another form of folk music, but definitely who are some of the folks that inspired you?
Well, I guess for me, it goes looking for specific people. This probably dates me a little bit, but when Lord of the Rings first came out, that's when I was first learning how to play the flute. And I heard James Galway play the flute, and I was enamored. So my early years, I was self-taught. And a lot of my self-teaching actually came from the Lord of the Rings soundtrack. So I would sit there with the soundtrack, and I would sit there with my flute and try and figure out how to play it. So I did a lot of ear training when I was very early on in my music adventures. And then as I started to advance a little bit more, I actually grew up in rural Alberta, so we didn't have access to big music programs, none of that. And when I came to Calgary for university, I was desperately trying to keep music in my life, and I came across this teacher, and she welcomed me with open arms, and that was my first formal instruction, really focusing on the flute. And she was absolutely amazing. Her name is Maria, and she was just she made everything just work for me. Helped me become a better player so I could actually express what I wanted to. And for a lot of the inspiration that I get now is kind of more abstract. I work a lot with nature. I do gardening and foraging and hiking and being out in nature, and through yoga as well. So I discovered yoga. I've actually done a lot of personal development work on my mat. I discovered yoga. It would have been later in my university career, and it helped me a lot physically and mentally. So pulling a lot from a lot of the meditation tracks you hear when you go into a studio. The music isn't necessarily in every studio, but I like to go to the ones with music, and I get inspired by whatever the yogis are using for music. And then the natural sounds, and I'm exposed to a lot of different music, playing in a flute choir, playing with my bandmates. They all have various musical inspirations, and we share music, and listening to the radio. We've got a really great radio station here. It's called CKUA, and they do stream online, so you can listen to them from anywhere in the world, but they do programming from around the world. They're covering music from around the world, all different genres. And to me, that's the most important part. So I'll be listening to a jazz show, and then a classical show, and then singer-songwriter material. So it's a huge mix in world music, and it's pulling little pieces from all these different places and then seeing what inspires me, and can I take these little pieces and put them together in a new way.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, one of the things I talked about Ms. Hall about, and I know it happens sometimes way too often here, is this whole concept of the artist being not rewarded for their service. And I know that a number of my musician friends here are oftentimes complaining about that they don't get enough of the support that they would like to get from the folks that are paying them, whether that's the clubs, whether that's the venues, whether that's the festivals, whether that's whatever might be the paying sources. How is that in terms of Canada? Are y'all finding that as much of an issue there in Canada, or is it more of a North American kind of problem in the sense of not getting the kind of rewards that you would like to get in terms of being actually compensated for your performances when you get to perform? So, like I said, I was wondering, is that just a North Carolina problem or a national problem, or is that a global problem where we're not seeing enough of the artists actually being rewarded for their what they're doing? Because like I said, I know you go to the doctor, you go to the dentist, you expect to pay them, and I think that we should do the same with the arts as well. But I just wondering what your views about that are and how Canada does in that regards.
Yes, I definitely, we do have those issues here. As a musician, I get asked to play for exposure. There's this really great comic. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it's, I think, a black and white stick figure comic. And they said, hey, come over here. I want you to do some art, and we're going to pay you an exposure. So they have this piece of paper that says exposure on it, and he goes to a hot dog stand and say, I want to pay for a hot dog. I want a hot dog. And he said, you can't pay with exposure. And it's so true in the music world and a lot of the art world. And it can be very frustrating because early on for me, when I was learning music and everything, I want the experience. I want to get performance experience. So I'm willing to do anything to get out there and get that experience. And then you have the people who are out there looking for musicians. They're like, oh, great, you're going to play for free. But then as we start to advance in our skills and we get to where we've invested time and money, we have the gear, we've paid a lot of money for our instruments and our instruction. And we're like, okay, I'm good enough. Now pay me. And they say, well, why would I pay you when I can get these other kids that are up and coming for free? So it's a vicious cycle. And then there's a whole nother level where people don't know what to charge. So you get somebody charging out for $20 an hour, and it's not sustainable as a career to be able to play a wedding for $20 an hour. It just doesn't work that way. Economically, you're not going to make it. So there's disparity in, I think, educating people on how to charge for it, and educating the people that are hiring you on what you're bringing to the table that these people playing for free are not. So the level of professionalism, the quality of music they're going to get, and how it's going to benefit them. We're often asked to play in bars for free, or this is my favorite one of all. They ask us to come in and play in a bar, and they require us to sell a certain amount of tickets. And I'm like, well, how are we even getting paid? We're up there performing. We're bringing people into the establishment. Those people are buying drinks. As band members, we're usually buying drinks or food or something. And then they expect us to sell tickets on top of that, and we're not getting paid. It's like, why would I do that? It doesn't make any sense. Where's the benefit?
Yes.
So, yeah, that one gets, it's quite frustrating for sure.
No, I agree, and it definitely can be frustrating. It's been frustrating now for a while. I will never forget. It was actually in the city of Raleigh, North Carolina, which is actually our state capital and everything. But there was a church that was asking me to find, and this was decades ago, so this is many years ago. But I think that practice still exists. But they were asking me to find them a sound person, and as anybody that knows about the business, sound people get paid a pretty decent amount of money. I mean, it's not like astronomical. It's definitely not doctors' wages or anything of that nature. But they were asking me whether I could find them a sound person. And when I had said that I could, because I know a number of folks that are connected to some of our universities here, then I asked the $6 million question, which was how much were they going to pay? And I think that they came back to me and the figure was something like $40 or $50. And when I took that back to some of my sound guys, they were basically like, that's not even going to pay for me to get my car to the gas to get from Durham to Raleigh and back. So they definitely did not feel it was worth it to do this multiple hour gig and everything. And like I said, even though that was probably about a decade or two ago, I think that those practices unfortunately still exist where folks are trying to shortchange folks. And I would even argue even in the art world, because I know that I made the mistake, and I will admit to my own mistakes, but I was working for a corporation and they knew that I knew a number of artists, including my dad. So I told them that I would introduce them to the artists and things of that nature. And then it came down to the concept of pay. And it seemed like they did not really want to pay the artist, the visual artist, and they also wanted them to display the art in what basically amounted to a small office. So there was going to be limited amount of eyes seeing the artwork, and most of those folks were not going to actually be, not knock my coworkers, but most of them were not probably patrons of the arts. They probably weren't going to buy like the high-end kind of artwork that is the kind of the work that my dad and some other folks do and everything. So it definitely wasn't worthwhile him putting the artwork up there if it wasn't going to generate any sort of sales. And I think that we see that even in the art world. Have you had those kind of experiences, Miss Hall, where folks have tried to approach you about putting artwork up either in an office or in some other place where you're not feeling that you're getting the reward that you should get?
Exactly. And sometimes when someone will offer you a price for a piece of art and you know that the frame that it's in costs more than that. And so now what I find myself doing now that I'm a designer and I design custom pieces and people don't understand what it costs to have my artwork custom put onto the fabric and made into a garment. That's been my challenge at first, but now I have a following. So people are looking to get an S.J. Hall piece of fashion because they know they're not going to buy it off of a store rack. Although that's what I'd like for them to do one day, so I can sit back and let the store sell it. But yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. Make that money off of the sales and everything. But I'm oftentimes just surprised when folks have those kind of experiences. And you're right. I also know that sometimes folks will see an art price and they'll see like a certain quoted price and everything. And I do think that sometimes artists do that intentionally. And I just want to know your thoughts on this, because sometimes you will see an art price that seems to be a little bit higher than what you might expect. But I think sometimes it's because of the artist's reputation, it's because of the artist. And in some cases, I think it's because the artist doesn't really want to sell that piece. So I do think that there are cases every once in a while where the artist will intentionally set the price higher because either they don't want to sell it, or if it's going to be bought, they want to make sure that they're getting their reward for it because it means a lot to them. So I have seen some cases where artists might price it above what the average person might think that they would be pricing it at. But I personally think that's because they personally love that artwork and don't necessarily want to get rid of it, or they want to make sure that even if they sell it, that it's sold at that right price point. But that's just my thoughts. What are your thoughts on that?
That might be the case, but like Lisa said, a lot of times people just don't appreciate what you've had to put into it and the years of experience that you've put into it. So I was one of those people that really priced my art way too low for way too long. I don't do that anymore. So, so once you spent hours and years of putting yourself into your art, and you begin to value yourself and value your art, there are people out there that can recognize that, but it is hard, especially in these times. That's one reason I went into fashion, is because people weren't buying wall art so much, but they wanted something different in the fashion world. And I actually was approached by a company that said, your colors and everything look good on fabric. A light bulb went off. That was my minor in college, was textiles. And I thought, well, maybe that's why my art looks like it would be good on clothing. So I found myself at 60, I'm a little older than that now, but at 60, I found myself going down a completely different road and going into surface design and fashion. So that's another whole learning experience that I've started in my retirement.
Yeah, but it seems like folks are learning all the time. As I said, I mentioned my dad being an artist. He actually became an artist after he retired as a professor, in terms of full-time artist, after he retired as a professor at our university. He was at UNC, and I think he might have taught at a couple of other universities as well. But it's after he did that he is now concentrating pretty much as a full-time artist. So definitely we see folks that are doing that, coming into their third or fourth career much later in life and everything. I do want to bring up really quickly, and I want to ask her about it because I just pulled it up on her website. But could you tell us, Lisa, about Let It Go, and maybe also about A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Make, because that's the two that I'm going to play from your look and listen session on your webpage and everything. But if you could tell us a little bit about those particular songs. One is called Let It Go, and the other one is A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes. But I think we'll start off with Let It Go.
Okay, so that one, I have a lot to do with kids. I teach in schools when the band programs are running as a clinician, and I do busking as well. And quite often when I busk at farmers markets, there is a fairly large population of young children. And also in my music studio, I teach kids of the age of Frozen. So this piece is from the movie Frozen. It's kind of the flagship piece. So many people are tired of hearing it. And it's something that gets the kids really excited every time. So when I go in to teach a clinic, especially for those brand new beginner students, at the end of the clinic, I play them something that they can see what they can do if they put in the time to practice and where they could be. So for a long time, I think it was 2 or 3 years, Frozen was very popular. So Let It Go was one of those pieces I would play. And the reason that one is on my website, I was busking one day and I had the music out of my folder for some reason, and I didn't have it with me that day. And this little girl really, really wanted to hear Let It Go. So I said, you know what? Here's my website. Go on my website tomorrow and I will play it and put it up there for you. So that's why that one's on the website.
Sounds good. We're gonna pull that one up. Let folks hear Let It Go. And then, like I said, we'd love to hear a little bit about A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes as well. But here's Let It Go. Wow, great song, and I definitely want to play the other one as well. So definitely, before we get to that one, I want to hear from you also before we get to that one. If you could tell us about that other song, which is about the heart, if I remember correctly. So we'd love to hear your comments on the song that is entitled "A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes." And I also want to let you know just really quickly that we've got two events that are coming up here on IBM.TV, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to attend both of those events. But just to let you know that on the 26th of this month, we're going to be part of a music marathon, and part of that music marathon is to actually raise money to help give money back to the artists around the world. So I know my friend Zach, who is a funk musician, will be doing some stuff revolving around that. I think Ken Knox, the chairman of the board, will be performing, and we're trying to get musicians from around the world. I know that we do a show with Alexandria May, who is a South African musician that comes out of that singer-songwriter kind of community, and she spends time between South Africa and Nashville when she can, even though right now it's pretty much her home of South Africa. But whenever we open up, I know she'll come back to Nashville. So I'm imagining that those will be some of the musicians we're reaching out to. But you do have an invitation on the 26th, which is the date of that music marathon. And then on the 21st, which is not this coming Monday, but the following Monday, it's World Peace Day. So that's for everybody that's been on the show, including the two that had to bounce off. But love to have y'all come on and give your thoughts on world peace and what world peace means to you. So do know that you all are both invited to that. And I might even, at the end of this show, have you give some thoughts and reflections about world peace and just peace in general, because it doesn't even have to be peace in the sense of the way we think about it, in the sense of conflicts and things of that nature. It can also be like peace of mind. So world peace can mean a lot of different things to different people. But if you would, Lisa, tell us a little bit about "A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes" before I get ready to play that one.
For sure. So we're on a Disney kick here. We had a little bit from Frozen, and this one, this is a Cinderella piece, I believe. And this was very early on. I think this was the second time I was ever in any kind of recording situation. So I was tossing around. Actually, this was even before I was tossing around an idea of putting a full album together. And for a Christmas gift one year, I put together, it was a 4-song CD that I gave to my friends and family. And this project, I was basically practicing arranging pieces. And "A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes," I can't remember how many tracks there are on this, but I layered the tracks. So I'm playing all of the flute parts. I feel like it was a quartet, but I can't remember exactly. We'll find out when we listen to it again. Basically, I was playing around with creating ensemble pieces of popular tunes. My mom loves the song. Which one was it? It's one of the ones I was considering for my album. I can't remember what it was, but I did 3 or 4 songs for this little EP I put out. So this was early days, one of the first times I was ever in a studio.
Sounds great, and we're looking forward to playing that one and everything. So you're ready to bring that one up and see if we can get that one playing also. So hopefully folks will hear this one as well. Wow, great song. Definitely, I'm sure folks were enjoying that and enjoying those sounds and getting a little bit of taste of what you're all about and all of that. When did you first start playing music? What age were you when you first started playing music? And like I said, you're a teacher, you're an engineer, so you've been doing it for a while. But just an idea, did you start when you were a kid? Did you start at like 5, or were you a child prodigy, or was it something much later in life that got you into the music?
My flute playing actually goes. I was a late start on the flute. Before flute, my very first instrument was actually a piano, but we didn't have a piano. We had an organ with 2 keyboards, so I learned how to play piano on an organ, and I started that. How old would I have been? Maybe around between 8 and 10. And then I started playing flute when I was maybe 13 or 14. And since then, the flute has been my primary instrument. I don't have the space to have a full piano. I'm looking for a digital piano, but even that is pretty big for my space. So I would like to get back into playing a little bit more piano again, but the flute is definitely the main instrument.
Gotcha. And what instrument would you like to learn? I'm going to ask Ms. Hall the same thing, but more about her art. So what's a musical instrument that you do not know how to play that you would like to learn how to play? Because I oftentimes find it really interesting when talking to musicians and artists and others that there's something that they have a passion for or something that they're interested in. They just haven't got around to playing it. So what's the instrument that you have not conquered yet that you would like to conquer?
Well, within the last probably 7 years, I've had the opportunity to expand my flute repertoire a little bit. So I actually own a C flute and a piccolo, and I play alto and bass flute. There is another flute I would love to get my hands on. It's a contrabass flute. It stands about 6 feet tall. It looks like a number 4. It feels like there's a train going through when you play it. It's got really deep bass notes. So in the flute world, that's I would love to get my hands on one of those and play it more. Non-flute, I think I mentioned earlier that I was learning bagpipes a little bit. I actually do have a set of pipes, and this is something I've been wanting to learn for years and years. And I started taking lessons last year, and with all the burnout, it just got to be too much. So I have the pipes, and it's something that I'm working on learning, but that would be like my many years dream that's coming true.
And what about yourself, Ms. Hall? What kind of paint styles or kind of artwork that you're not doing now that you would like to try your hands at? Like I said, you've been doing the abstract art as you just described it. You definitely started branching into fashion. So what is something that you've not done that is on your dream list of things you'd like to try? Oh, hold on a second. I think you're still on mute, so I got to get you off of mute, unfortunately. There you go.
Yes, well, the graphic side of art, I used to use, it's lost my memory, Photoshop a lot. And I find now that it has really changed. Photoshop is not what it used to be when I used to use it. So that's my challenge right now. I want to really learn to use Photoshop so that I can master repeated pattern design. And it's very technical now. And so that's what I'm trying to learn, because I like to do more in the fashion world. And I know I can do it much better if I master the Photoshop and some of the other Illustrator technology that's out there.
Yep. Well, I have to get to do that. Maybe somebody is watching that's got those kind of like platforms or programs, or somebody's got that kind of special.
Somebody's got the patience, because watching a video doesn't get it for me. Videos don't get it. I need some one-on-one training.
Need that one-on-one training. I can definitely understand that. Do you find that a lot, Ms. Graham, that your students need that one-on-one training, that they can't really get it with video or with this kind of like virtual world that we're living in? Because I know a lot of times people trying to learn musical instruments virtually. So how are you finding it in that sense? Are you finding that they can learn that way or not?
Well, a lot of what I tell my students is all about repetition. So they know what I'm going to say. And I believe when I'm teaching, I believe in getting them to self-evaluate a lot. So as they're right from when they start to play, I'm asking them questions about what they think about their playing. And maybe I'll play a demonstration. I'll say, is that what it sounds like? So it's a lot of getting that self-evaluation piece in there. So a lot of times when I'm teaching online, there are a few different things I'm always harping on them for. I say, well, you need to use more air, better air support. That's probably the biggest thing I talk to. So I say, okay, well, what do you think would make that better? And they're like, oh, yeah, it's the air thing again. So I'm kind of teaching them to teach themselves. And I feel like there's still a little bit of work I can do because I was self-taught. So I had to be motivated enough to teach myself. And I'm finding that a lot of my students, they do need a little bit more hand holding than I needed when I was starting. So that's something that I'm working on in my teaching methods to try and encourage that and to build that into them, to inspire them to kind of take the lead a little bit more.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and they need to have that happen more and more. Everything. I did want to let you know, by the way, that one of the shows that we got here on IBM.TV is one called Plant a Seed, and that's with Tish Oakley. She's actually going to have on this Saturday a Buddhist monk, and the Buddhist monk, before he started getting into a conversation around that, and he's going to be coming to us from Nepal, but he will actually be playing some of their instruments. And I think it's going to be the flute that he's going to be playing. So if you get a chance to go on IBM.TV, I think her show is from 1 to 2 o'clock, and it's aired live on Facebook and all of that. But that will be somebody that will be in that same field that you are, sharing his music. And they'll actually probably start the show with his performance. So that'll be at the beginning of the show. But I know Tish had mentioned to me that he was going to come on and he was going to play some of those traditional songs and everything. So both of you, are there places? I know we got to open up the world at some point. Don't know when, but we've got to figure out this whole COVID thing. So it might be sometime a ways. But whenever we get to a more natural state of things and people are able to have the new normal, whatever that looks like, are there places in the world that you would like to travel to? We definitely talked to Miss Hall, and she said she's coming up there to visit you in Canada. Whether there are other parts of the world that you would like to go and visit. So I know there's a number of folks that have their wish list. We also have a travel show that's here on the platform, but I was just wondering if there are places that you would like to travel to whenever traveling opens back up. So I'll start with you, Ms. Brown.
Well, I love to travel. I've been to a few places. There are always so many more things to see. Right now, the top 2 places I would love to get to, I want to see Machu Picchu and I want to go to Japan. Okay,
so those are great places to go to. What about yourself, Ms. Hall? Where is your dream list of places that you want to go visit?
Well, and like I said before, which is another show, I spent 25 years in Anchorage, Alaska, and in Alaska, that was a wonderful place. But I did recently, before COVID and everything, I got to go to Paris, and I want to go back, for an artist to go to Paris and Rome. That was wonderful, but I didn't have enough time there. So I'd like to go back, and I've always wanted to go to Australia. Yeah. So, yeah, those are on my wish list.
Yeah, they're on my wish list, too. A lot of those places you named, like definitely Paris, even though I've never been there, definitely Australia. And I've actually got a few friends, including one that used to be here in Durham that moved to Australia. So definitely Australia's been on my wish list, as well as New Zealand on the other side of Australia. So there are a number of places that I would like to go visit as well. And even though we don't have time to go up into it that much and everything, but Tim, do share with our listeners what did take you to North Carolina to Alaska? Because like I said, you were there for a number of years. You were a teacher there. So what got you to go from North Carolina to Alaska in the first place?
Well, when I graduated from the East Carolina School of Arts, no one was hiring art teachers. I found myself being a teacher's aide, and I had some friends who had military family in Alaska, and they said, we're driving to Alaska. And, I thought, you're driving to Alaska? And the more I thought about that, I'm like, I'm not going to miss this opportunity. So I went to Alaska thinking I'd stay. I told my mother, I'll be there a year or two. I ended up staying 25 years because the culture and the people and the diversity. I now have 4 grandchildren there, and my son was raised there. He's never left. I have a beautiful Alaska Native daughter-in-law. And so I'm still very much tied to Alaska and missing my summer trip this year. They're waiting for me to come back. So, yeah, it was a wonderful place to be and to raise children. My daughter was raised there. And because she was in Alaska at just the right time, she got to dance with the Alberta Ballet. They came to Alaska and she got to play Clara in their Nutcracker and things that I think at that time wouldn't have happened if we were in North Carolina. So it was a wonderful place to be and to be an artist.
And what were some of the things that surprised you about Alaska? Like you said, you weren't planning to go there. You went there because it's where the teaching job was. And you definitely talked about the culture. But what are some of the things specifically about the culture that surprised you or just about Alaskan people in general? What were some of the things that kept you there? Because like I said, you were there for a number of years. So I think there must have been some very attractive things about Alaska. So I was just wondering what some of those things were.
Okay, even being raised in North Carolina, I learned more than I ever knew about Juneteenth while I was in Alaska. I was invited to a Juneteenth celebration and went downtown to this huge park strip, something like Central Park, but in Anchorage, Alaska. And I did not know there were that many African Americans in Alaska. That was in the 80s. And they were having a huge Juneteenth celebration. And then I've been to some amazing Alaska Native, and there's lots of Alaska Native tribes. So a lot of people just think it's Eskimo, but no. I've gone to some of their celebrations, and the celebration of culture and the celebration around foods and the similarities. I even did an art piece while I was out there where I studied the similarities between the Alaskan Native mask and the African mask, and all the similarities in the symbolism in the art. Subsistent living and being from the country where we killed our own, did the hogs and the chickens. I was raised on a poultry farm, and then seeing the subsistent living in Alaska and how people would go back out into the village and live that way, and then come back when it got cold. Someone would come back into the city for school. But it was just a whole different experience that if you've never been there, you would never know. And people used to think that, okay, it must have been a little behind times. No, my children got a wonderful education there. And no, we weren't behind times in Anchorage. They were ahead of times, if anything else.
Wow. Definitely. That's surprising. And I'm sure a number of folks will be surprised that you learned more about Juneteenth all the way on the opposite side of the country from North Carolina than you actually learned here in the South and things of that nature. What are some of the things that folks might be surprised about Canada about in terms of their history? Like I said, we talked about some of the cultural things, but in terms of the history of Canada, what are some of the things that folks might be surprised about in that regards as well? Because we do love to learn more about our world communities here on this platform as well as on IBM.TV. So tell us about some things that folks might be surprised about in relationship to the history of Canada.
Oh boy. History of Canada. It's hard for me as somebody who lives here to, because I seek out the history when I go places, and that's a really good question. I gotta think. We were actually reading a guidebook this year. We were looking for some places to hike, and this was really fascinating for me because it's been a passing thought, but I haven't really thought too deeply about it. But in this hiking guidebook, it was close to Calgary. It's about 45 minutes to an hour outside of Calgary. There's all these beautiful hikes, and we've done quite a few of them this summer. And we're reading through this guidebook, and it has, I think they're all day hikes in Kananaskis. And we were reading some of the history behind some of the hikes and learning about people who are doing these hikes every single day because there's weather stations at the top, or thinking about the exploration that goes into creating these paths. Like, how do people even find them? And that's something that I found really fascinating this year. Doing more hiking this year, I've done the most hiking I've ever done since I moved to Calgary. And it's been a new experience for me to start to think about why these trails are there, what they were used for, and how they came to be. because you enjoy a hike, you go out and you enjoy a hike, and you don't usually think too much about the background. But there's actually a lot of interesting history about the weather stations and exploration, trying to figure out mapping the regions. So that was a big one for me, getting out there. And whenever I do road trips, I love to do road trips all around Alberta, BC. I haven't been into Saskatchewan too much. But I like the little roadside stops because sometimes you get some little nuggets of information, historical information that's really fascinating. So for anybody coming to visit the country, I would say take advantage when you see those little historical sites. Take advantage of those because as somebody who's lived here their whole life, I still learn a lot from it. So for somebody coming in wanting to learn more about it, we actually have a lot of history, dinosaur history and stuff in the area I grew up in. So the dinosaur bones, we've got a big excavation area out there that's really cool. And so I kind of grew up with all that really far back history. And now this year I've been exploring more of the slightly more recent history.
Yeah, sounds like there's some great history up there. I've actually got a cousin that moved up there not too long ago, and I got to remember which province he's in, but he's actually very much involved in the Native American culture and everything. His sister is actually one of our top fancy dancers and top powwow dancers around the country, even though they're not doing as much of that right now because of COVID and all of that. But they definitely have gone up there. But my cousin Will Hedgepeth has actually got a line of clothes. So it actually comes back to Miss Hall and the line of clothes. So he's actually got some native designs that he's done and everything. And he actually moved up there and married one of the Native Americans from up in that community. So he's been up there for a number of years. So I keep saying that Canada's on my list of places to go visit. And I still got other places in the United States I've got to visit, but definitely just north of the border in Canada and south of the border in Mexico, I've got to get there and do some visiting around those areas because I've not done enough of that, unfortunately. So I definitely need to do more and more of that. So as we get ready to wind everything down, I still have to have my dinner party games that I've got and the mystery guests that I'll bring up, which is part of what we do here on the dinner party. And of course, y'all can play along as well. I tried to make it easier this time because my producers told me that I was giving them too hard of clues last time and I wasn't making it easy enough and things of that nature. And we're still trying to figure out what the prize is going to be. But I put up 4 folks and nobody except for one of the guys who was on the show a couple of weeks ago was able to get one of the folks. So like I said, I did not think I was being all that hard, but they said I was being a little bit too complicated. So I'm going to have to stop being as complicated and give some easy clues so that folks can actually win and play. So definitely get ready to do that and all of that. So I know that Miss Hall is going to want to bounce off, and I do want to share the contest. And if you want to play along, Miss Graham, you can and everything. But that being said, before we say goodbye to Miss Hall and before we wind down the show totally and everything, do you want to share your thoughts of your word of encouragement, like I had with Crystal give, and I was going to have Bob give, but he bounced off. But your words of encouragement that you would like to share with our global community. I'd love to hear that from you, Ms. Hall, if you can share your words of encouragement and also how folks can find you, because folks might want to buy some of that fancy artwork of yours as well as those great fashions. So any way that you can share that with us, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, I guess my word that I will leave with you is perseverance. If you're doing something that you enjoy and you love what you're doing, that you should continue. Don't give up. Continue to do what you love to do. And if you're doing what you love to do, it shouldn't be that much work to you. And also always find a way to use your gifts to help others. And my work can be found at sjhalldesign.com and on Facebook and Instagram at sjhallart. And so I've enjoyed being with you today, and it was interesting listening to you, Lisa, also, and meeting other people in the IBM TV world. This has been wonderful, and I hope to be with you again sometime.
I hope that you come back again. Like I said, it was definitely an enjoyable conversation, and I'll bring up the website one more time so that folks can see that website before getting into the online dinner party part of the game and everything. But I will bring that website up as folks can see where they can find your artwork. But I do appreciate you joining me and sharing your wisdom, whether it's seeing you around the triangle at the different festivals or around some of the venues here like the HI Heritage Center or a number of other places that I'm involved with. I've always admired your artwork and continue to admire your artwork. So definitely just wanted to share that with you, and definitely look forward to having you back on in the very near future. So I definitely wanted to let you know that you're always welcome back, and definitely look forward to seeing more and more of your artwork. And definitely I know folks will be looking forward to getting that book and everything, and seeing the book of you and your granddaughter and everything. By the way, before you get off and everything, is this your granddaughter that we're seeing in this picture next to one of your artwork? Because I'm thinking that that might be the right age for that particular granddaughter.
No, actually, that's her mother. That's my daughter.
That's
and
your mother.
Yes, and her daughter, the little artist, is in the second grade. Yeah.
All right, so she's in the second grade and things of that nature. And like you said, folks can go to the different websites and see some of your amazing artwork, whether that's going to the the About Us that tells about your story and about the bold and vibrant views that folks can get and that they might see from your artwork. And of course, you do talk about your history of spending that time in Alaska, as you shared with our listeners. And then, like I said, folks can definitely go to check out your different collections and your art services and events. So the Pretty in Pink collection, I'm assuming, is the fashion collection, and folks can go there and see some of your.
And if you look at it, you see that I'm a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. That's a special collection. That one is.
A very special collection. As a matter of fact, I believe, if I remember correctly, isn't there a certain vice presidential candidate that is also a proud member of that sorority and who is also very much involved in their activities? I believe that they recently came here not too long ago and spoke, and I was told that the AKAs kind of showed out in terms of attendance. But I don't know if you were there at that event, but it was an event that was held at one of our prominent African-American churches in Durham. But I was told that they showed out and showed out in force in terms of being involved.
Yes, we're very proud of her. But the shop all on the, yes, we are. And so we're excited about that and trying to stay partial as we are. But, you know, we're excited about that. The shop all section will have a little bit of something for everyone.
So the shop all section will have something not just for the AKA, but they can go to the shop all and see that you got everything like your wearable art. Matter of fact, I'll click on that. Oh, and we've also got shoes. So for those folks that are interested in shoes, there are shoes as well. So definitely
that's
see
something
some
I
of these.
did while I was here on the during shutdown. I started designing shoe designs.
Wow.
So they're further down. Yes. So a little bit of everything.
We'll show a little bit more of this artwork so folks can see a little bit more of what you've got and things of that nature. So definitely, I think folks will be very excited. Ms. Graham, are you saying anything that you want to add to your wardrobe in terms of your performance wardrobe? Because I'm thinking that she has some shoes and some other things that I'm thinking that you could probably incorporate into your next performance wardrobe whenever we get back to seeing performances. And you did say you've got hiking, and some of these shoes definitely look very comfortable for hiking, because this one looks like it's active footwear. So what are your thoughts? Do you think that there's some stuff there that you could use as well?
Oh, well, I'm definitely going on the website. I'm going to do some shopping later.
Yeah, all right. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Nice to meet you. And I love your music.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So definitely we'll have folks learning more and more about how to go to Ms. Hall's website. And like Ms. Graham said, she's going to get her shopping in. And of course, there are ways that you can reach Ms. Hall as well on the website, including the email and where she's at around the Raleigh area and everything of that nature. So definitely was glad to have you on the show, and definitely glad that you were able to share your artwork with us and join us in this great conversation. So I do appreciate you being here and to share all of that knowledge with us. So definitely I appreciate that. And I know that a lot of folks are going to be checking that out and things of that nature. I know it's almost dinner time for a number of folks. I know you probably got to get ready to bounce and get ready to do dinner. I'll spend another 15 or 20 minutes with Miss Graham, but I do appreciate you being.
I have to go soon. I have to teach in about 15 minutes. So
okay, that's about that's good enough time. 15 minutes. So I'm gonna let definitely Miss Hall go. So I do want to thank you for being on, and I do know that you will be welcome back in the very near future and everything of that nature. So
thank you very much. Okay, goodbye.
So, and I'm so glad you were able to join us, Ms. Graham. I know that we had talked about having you on, I think it was last week or the week before, and just our communications got a little crisscross, but I think folks learned a lot about you and a lot about what you're doing and things of that nature. So I'm going to put on these clues and everything, and if you read the clues running in the banner, like I said, folks were getting on my case for making them too hard. So hopefully these aren't as hard and everything. So you want to play along. That's what the last person did that came on the show, and they actually guessed it right. So here's one of the clues that's coming across the screen and everything. But while you're looking at those clues that are rolling across, and maybe some folks are watching, and they might have an answer as well, because I'm trying to get us to have at least a winner or two. So far, this will be day 3 of no full winners. So hopefully folks will figure out the clues and we'll get some winners in the online dinner party contest, which is our online trivia contest. And I'm going to have to break down and just get easier clues and everything. But I am trying to make it easier and easier for folks. But as those clues are rolling across the screen, and I know you've got to go teach one of your, is it one student today or are you teaching multiple students today?
I just have one today.
Okay, so you'll be teaching that one student and everything, but everybody else, I gave them that opportunity, those that stuck around, to give their thoughts and words of encouragement. So if you would share your words of encouragement that you might share with one of your students or that you might just share in general in life, we would love to hear that from you right now. So I'd love to hear you in terms of words of encouragement that you might want to give folks.
Well, I've got kind of 2 areas. The first one is centered around a lot of what we've been talking about today, and that's the creativity. Be creative. It helps in all aspects of your life. It doesn't matter what you do, if you're knitting or drawing a picture, doing music, gardening, whatever it is, be creative. It's good for you. And the other component is make sure you get enough sleep. So in COVID, we've had opportunities to get more sleep, and it's so healing. I know Ariana Huffington talks a lot about sleep and how important it is, and I think we're seeing more and more how important it is. So be creative and get some sleep.
Definitely need sleep. I know that I am sometimes guilty of doing that as well, not getting enough of that sleep, because it is very important. And unfortunately, we don't get enough of that, and we need to get more and more sleep, because I know that I am just as guilty of anybody else of not getting that rest and not getting that sleep. So I agree with you that that's something that we need to do more of in our lives. Just in terms of like how folks can reach you, I did put up the website that one time, but if you want to share the website, your Facebook page, social media, any other ways that you want to share that folks can reach you, I'm sure that they would love to hear that from you.
For sure. So my music activities can be found at lisagraham.ca, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Lisa Graham Music. And my bee business is yycwax.com. I'm also Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at yycwax. And that's pretty much how you get hold of me. My personal Twitter account, I'm on there once in a while, is at Lisgra, Lasgra. And those are all the ways you can get a hold of me anywhere.
Sounds great. Sounds like you're easy to be reached at in that sense, and folks can definitely share your music, learn about your music, and things of that nature. That being said, and I know you've got to get to your student very shortly. I think you said about another 10 minutes, but I did not want to leave the beeswax alone and everything. So are you just doing beeswax candles? Are you actually working with the bees, or how are you actually involved in the beeswax business? Because I do know some folks that are beekeepers, and that's not an easy field, and folks that are also involved in like getting honey and things of that nature. So are you just doing like the candles, or exactly what are you doing with the beeswax?
I do everything from farm to table. So I keep the bees and I make products. I have the honey and pollen and other hive products that I harvest from the hives. We do bath and body products, candles, melts, food wraps, pretty much anything you can make with products from a beehive I'm making. Getting into more of the food space, so using honey to create different types of food. I'm working on a book right now, beginner beeswax candle making, and after that I'm planning a recipe book. So
Oh, cool. That sounds really amazing. And I'm sure folks will be very much interested in that. Here in Durham, we're actually the local home for bird bees. And of course, many people know the story of bird bees. And of course, that's in that same field of beekeeping and bee products in terms of like beauty products and things of that nature. So definitely, I know a little bit about that from their work, as well as having some friends that are into the creation of getting honey and things from the bees. But personally, I'm a little terrified of the bees because I'm afraid that if I go in there and try to grab them, that they might sting me and things of that nature. So I think that you're brave in that sense. So I think that you probably haven't been stung enough, or you have just gotten over the fact and know how to cope with the bees. Because I would be just afraid that the bees are going to like light up on me and everything. But that just might be me and my own fears.
Yeah, well, we're almost to the end of our season. We've got a month and a half left, and I've been stung 4 times this year, so it's nothing.
Say nothing there. You can handle it. No big deal. Just like as soon as I do that, put off some medication or something on the bees and then just keep it moving. So if you've done that for an entire year and you've only been stung 4 times, that's a real good average. So you can't beat that at all. So that is amazing and things of that nature. How many bees are you thinking you're keeping? Is it like thousands, or is it multiple thousands or tens of thousands? Do you have any idea of how many bees you're actually keeping?
Well, I have 5 live hives, and I've actually got a few more out there, so I'm up to 8 right now. And each hive at our peak time, usually mid-August, we can get up to between 65 and 85,000 bees per hive.
Wow. That's a lot of bees to be taken care of and everything. And it sounds like you're doing a great job with those bees and all of that. So definitely, I want to thank you for being on the show as well. I've still got a few more minutes of wrap up things to do before calling the end of the show. But I definitely want to thank you for joining me as well as the other guests. I will let you get to your student, but you shared so much, both about your music, both about the bees and everything else. So definitely glad that you were able to join us and everything. Don't know if you've been following the scrolling thing going across, but I've given a couple of those clues, and I will continue giving them to folks that might be watching and listening. Like I said, I did have one guest before that actually got it correct. They remembered the founder of Kenya, and they were actually from America, so they surprised me when they knew who Jomo Kenyatta was, but they figured that one out. But I've got a gangster that's running across right now, and I've got a international figure as well. I was thinking the international figure would be something that folks would be able to get very easily, but so far no bites. But we'll see if you can guess in the next 3 or 4 minutes. But that's what's rolling across the scroll at the bottom is the clue about the international person as well as the folks that are from here in America. But the American person comes out of the ghetto world. So I don't know if you've been able to read the scroll or if you've got any guesses as to the person from the international community. And I can't tell you that it's somebody from Europe, if that helps you any in terms of guessing. But definitely, I don't know if you want to take a poke at it before getting ready to bounce off to teach your student, if you want to try to guess who our mystery guest is in terms of a historical figure and things of that nature. So I don't know if you want to take a poke at it.
I'm really awful at these, so I have no clue at all.
No problem. We will reveal it at the end of the show. So if you go back at the end, and I know you've got to get to your lesson and everything, by that time I would have told the folks who the mystery guest, but don't feel any bad about that. I am just as bad, and I have been in radio since I was a teenager, meaning that I've done radio since I was like probably about 14 or 15, maybe even a little bit younger than that. My folks started a radio station in rural North Carolina. That being said, you would think that I'd be very good at that thing called Name That Tune. I'm horrible. So like I said, you can play musical notes all day long, and I will have no clue. even in musical forms that I love, like jazz and blues and R&B, you can play tunes all day long, and I'll be sitting there going like, I don't know. So I'm with you on that in terms of it's not as easy as it seems to be. Because, like I said, I've been involved in music for close to 40 years, if not more than that. And folks have oftentimes come over there and they told me the name of a tune. And actually, after they say it, they play it and they play the whole song. I'm like, oh, drats, I should have known that one. But unfortunately, I'm like you on this game. I'm horrible at name that tune, even though I've got a rich musical history and a rich radio history. But unfortunately, it is not translated into me knowing the tunes. So I can relate.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on today. It was a pleasure to be on here with all of your other guests, and it was great.
Thank you. I'm glad that you was able to have you on. It was a really fun conversation. Glad that we were able to share your music, share more about what's going on there in Canada, and definitely glad to have you as a guest. Like I said, I'm going to let you go and take care of your student and everything. I'm imagining that doorbell of yours is going to ring any moment as they are getting ready to come in there and get ready to have class with you. So I do want to thank you for being on the show with me. And definitely, like I said, we'll have a couple of wrap-up comments that I'll be making, so you don't have to stick around for that. And then I will reveal our mystery guest as well. So definitely want to thank you as well as the other guests for being on the show with us. It was a very fun conversation, and I definitely thoroughly enjoyed it and look forward to having you back in the very near future. I was very serious about trying to get you on to that music marathon, so that'll be held in about 2.5 weeks. So I'll reach out to you on LinkedIn or Facebook or one of the other ways that we talk to each other and try to figure out a time or a segment that you can come in and pop in and share your music as we try to do our part to help the musicians of the world during this hard time. So I know that's one of the things that IBM.TV is trying to do with this music marathon is find a way to help the musicians of the world. So definitely I will reach out to you and hopefully we'll find a way to get you involved in that process. So definitely keep that in mind that I'll be reaching out to you for that as well as the World Peace Day activities.
For sure. I'm looking forward to being part of it.
Sounds great. Definitely looking forward to having Lisa be part of that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give y'all another dose of Lisa's music while she runs off and deals with her student and everything. And then I'm going to reveal the mystery guest as well. So I'm going to have her bounce off, but I will share the screen so that folks can hear a little bit more of her music. So I'm going to do that very shortly. So I'll put on maybe one or two more of her songs and all of that. And while I'm doing that, we will continue the conversation, and I will reveal the winner of the, not the winner, but we'll reveal who the mystery guest is very shortly. So definitely want to keep that in mind, and definitely we'll have this going on. So we're going to go to her look and listen page, and we will bring up some more of her music so that y'all can hear more of Lisa Graham's music. So this next one is called Beautiful Dreamers. So we will hear a little bit of Beautiful Dreamers. Then I will come back with more of the information about our mystery guests, and I will reveal who the mystery guests are at that time. So definitely, if y'all will indulge us with hearing a little bit of Lisa Graham's music, that would be wonderful. And then from there, we will bring on our mystery guest. And I think that y'all will have a very enjoyable time checking out the mystery guest. But in the meantime, we're going to check out this song entitled Beautiful Dream.
When I was a little girl, my father used to say, if trouble ever troubles you, just dream your cares away. A dream is a wish your heart makes when you're fast asleep. In dreams you will lose your heartaches. Whatever you wish for, you keep. Have faith in your dreams, and someday your rainbow will come smiling through. No matter how your heart is grieving, if you keep on believing, the dream that you wish will come true.
And up next, we're going to hear the one entitled Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies. Yep, that was some more great music from Miss Graham. And the next one will be one that I know a lot of folks will be able to relate to. That's Danny Boy. Yep, that was Danny Boy, and I'm sure a lot of folks were able to relate to Danny Boy and what Danny Boy is all about, because that is definitely a classic song among those folks that are of Irish descent or that just love Irish music. So I'm sure a lot of folks will be able to relate to that particular song and to what it is all about, because a number of folks will probably be like, yeah, I remember that song, or that song means something to me, and all of that. So I'm sure a lot of folks will be able to relate to that, and we'll be thinking about the meaning of that song to them. So definitely going to thank Miss Graham, thank Miss Crystal Bodie Smith, thank Bob for joining us as well, and of course thank Miss Hall, our artist friend. So we had a number of great guests, and definitely are winding down the end of the show, but I'm about to reveal the mystery guest very shortly. But before we get to that, I think that we'll give you this song that I think a lot of folks will be able to remember as well. So definitely we're looking forward to hearing more and more folks enjoy the music, and this one is the one that I think a lot of folks will enjoy. All right, folks. That was some more great music from Lisa Graham. We definitely appreciate Lisa Graham sharing her music with us and all of that. So definitely appreciate that big time. So like I said, that was some more of Lisa Graham's sounds and music. So definitely appreciate those that were joining us and that were wondering about all of that. As you can tell, the stream has been continued, and I've been still giving you the clues that folks might be interested in. So definitely been continuing that and definitely rolling them across the screen. And so far, we've not gotten a bite as from in terms of folks coming up with an answer in terms of like what they might think might be the person. So definitely, I'm going to give you all a couple of more clues, and hopefully somebody will get it in the next few minutes, because you do know it has to be solved between the hours of 4 and 7. Can't be solved by going back and looking at the answer, because that would be kind of like cheating, and we're not going to have that. So definitely checking out the clues, and hopefully somebody will text me or write me and let me know that they have figured out the answer. So definitely keep that in mind and let us know if you think you know who the answer is. So giving y'all some clues that are coming across the screen. One of them is, I warned my countrymen about the perils of German nationalism. I warned my country about the perils of German nationalism. And another one was, I established the Royal Navy Air Service, modernized the British fleet, and helped invent one of the earliest tanks. So that's another clue that folks might know as well. And then another one that folks might know as well is this one. I worked on behalf of let's see. No, yep. I worked on behalf of progressive social reforms like a 8-hour workday, a government mandated minimum wage, a state-run labor exchange for unemployed workers, and a system of public health insurance. So that's another one of the clues about that person. And then this one might get you as well. One of my books was an account of my experiences in India's Northwest Frontier Province. So that's right, they spent some time in India's Northwest Frontier Province. And another one is this one, which is that they won the Nobel Peace Prize for Literature back in the early 50s. So that is another one. And their mother was an American Harris, who also was involved with the New York Times. So that's some of the news about our international person. I'm thinking that folks might be able to guess it by now, but so far we're not getting any bites. So we're going to see if anybody can guess it in the next few minutes. Well, I'll give you all another clue. In 1953, Queen Elizabeth made me a Knight of the Order of the Garter. That's right, the Order of the Garter and Queen Elizabeth. So that'll narrow it down as well. As far as our American person, well, like I said, they're involved in the gangster work. So that's a clue right there. I was killed after leaving a movie theater where I had been watching a gangster movie. So definitely somebody was involved in that world. And I escaped once using a wooden pistol. After eluding police in the 40s for almost a year, I was wounded and went to my father's home to mend. So they actually went to their father's home in order to mend. And J. Edgar Hoover, then director of an organization that had a different name at that time. The organization was called something totally different than it's known as now. But, this person might have helped them create that and everything. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about these clues. So J. Edgar Hoover was involved in this person's life as well. And their gang was accused of robbing 24 banks and 4 police stations. So their gang was accused of robbing 24 banks and 4 police stations. And they were an American gangster in the Depression era. So the Depression era is another clue. So hopefully folks are able to figure this out. I've given a number of clues. Nobody is seeming to bite on these clues or anything of that nature. As far as the international person, they actually warned about the Iron Curtain. So they warned about the Iron Curtain back during another time frame and everything of that nature. So definitely I've given y'all quite a few good clues, everything and all of that. So I do not know why you have not figured it out, but I'm going to edit another one of these clues and see if that can get you any idea. So definitely folks should be figuring out the clue and all of that, but so far nobody is biting. So we're going to see if folks can bite here as well. So definitely they had this quote that they quoted and everything. So we'll see if anybody can figure about what you can do in terms of victory and winning the war. So that's another clue. And so far, nobody is actually fighting here in terms of coming up with the answers. So they also entered the Royal Air Force, and they did some modernizing, and they actually helped create the tank. So doesn't look like we're going to have a winner on this particular day. So once again, it's going to be 0 for 6. I guess it's 1 for 6. Since I did have somebody that did figure out one of the clues, but unfortunately they were guests on the show, and guests on the show are somewhat uneligible. So that being said, your person for our first mystery guest is this gentleman. This gentleman right here is none other than Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill is your mystery guest for today. Winston Churchill is our international mystery guest. So Winston Churchill is our international mystery guest. And for those of you wondering about the world of crime, well, it would be this gentleman right here, none other than John Dillinger. That's right. John Dillinger is our mystery clue for today's clues and all of that. So our mystery guest from the world of international politics, it is Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill is our international guest of honor in terms of the mystery guest at the dinner theater, and none other than this criminal mastermind, John Dillinger, is our guest of honor for the other show as well. So for the other guests. So our guest from right here in the United States, out of the world of crime, John Dillinger. For our guests from the international world, none other than the diplomat and statesman, Winston Churchill. So those are our folks that folks should have been guessing, Winston Churchill and John Dillinger. So once again, John Dillinger and Winston Churchill are our folks that folks should have been guessing on this particular day. But unfortunately, it looks like we're going to have to go till next week, and hopefully we'll have some folks that can actually pull this off and understand what is going on. In the meantime, I'm going to talk about another show that we've got coming up here, that being none other than Spiritual Saturdays and all of that. So that'll be coming your way very shortly, in a matter of a few days, and definitely want folks to know that Spiritual Saturdays is a great show right here on IBM.TV, and it is one that definitely folks should be checking on a regular basis. So that being said, I'm going to bring up our ambassador, and the ambassador will wrap everything up, and then we'll have a little bit of the plane and the trip that is wrapping up this particular show at this particular time. But right now, let's check out the ambassador and see what the ambassador's got to say.
Coronavirus से कैसे बचेंगे? हैंड होकर और ऐसे अपने खांसी जब आएगी तो ऐसे करेंगे अच्छू अच्छू और कोरोना वायरस को धन्यवाद हमारा म्यूजिक सुनने का.
And now here's the plane to take us on out of here. And we'll be back next week with more exciting shows and all that. Of course, I'll be here over the weekend hanging out with Zach and hanging out with Tish. That's right. On Saturday, we've got Funk from the Front, and we've also got Tish Oakley with her Plant a Seed show. So we're looking forward to that. And then Sunday, we've got funk music with Zach. And, of course, we've got the roundtable discussion. Of course, I'll be back here tomorrow as well when we have a discussion on the Gamers Den. So talking about the gaming industry. So that being said, I'm here, and here's the plane to get us all out of here, and also conversation about whatever.